Hello everyone and welcome to my very first importation tutorial. In this mini series I will be showing you how to import new models into Battlestation specific, and we're gonna start off with the ship importation tutorial. Of course, this is the ship importation tutorial, and in this one I will be teaching you how to import vessels into Battlestation specific. I will be showing you the basic gist of the whole process, and it's probably going to be a pretty long tutorial, seeing that there's actually a lot of things that you have to do in the importation process. I'm not going to spend too much on the intros. All I'm going to do right now is I'm actually going to introduce you to a few of the key programs that we will use throughout the process. Well, I say a few, you technically only need one, but I will go through some of the more optional ones that you will probably find useful later on. Anyways, the first program that we will use, and probably the most important one, the one you're going to be using the most, is called Lightwave. That is our model editor software that we will be using to actually modify the model, make it compatible with the game, and then bring it into the game. This is Lightwave. You're gonna need to get Lightwave 3D 9.5, and you need to install the 32-bit version. Even if you have a 64-bit computer, you still need to have the 32-bit version installed, because the plugin that we're gonna use to export these models into the correct format does not, unfortunately, work with the 64-bit version of the program. Okay, so this is the purple one, as I call it. This is the modeler. I will of course introduce you to, you don't need to know anything about 3D modeling going to this tutorial. I will teach you everything you need to know right in here. And this is the modeler part. This is there's two parts of this program. In the installer you will actually install two separate programs. This is the modeler, the purple one, and this is the one that we're going to use to actually model the model, to texture it, and all that type of stuff. The second program that you're going to have included in the Lightwave installer is this red one, the Lightwave layout. This program is often used with animations, with movies and stuff like that. You're not going to be animating stuff with the ship importation tutorial, unlike the plane one. If I actually do the aircraft importation tutorial, I'm going to teach you how to actually animate the different parts of the plane, the landing gear and stuff like that. But that's for later. What you are going to need to use this for, though, is for one of the last steps of the processing, in order to export the model into the correct format that the game can read it in. So you need both of them. They both come in the included installer, or they should. So you need to download NewTek Lightwave 3D 9.5. That's the version you need to get, and you need to install the 32-bit version. However you want to get that, you need to get that program. The second program that you are probably going to use is some kind of an image editor. Now, I usually use Photoshop, but GIMP is also a good program to use. Yeah, so GIMP, basically any image editor that lets you save picture files into DDS format. So as I said, GIMP can also work. I'm pretty sure GIMP has a DDS picture plugin. Basically, all you need is just any image editor that lets you save in a DDS format, because BSP reads all of its texture files in a DDS format. And anyways, that's pretty much all you need to do. Another useful program to have that you don't need to have is some sort of 3D modeler that lets you reduce or optimize your models while keeping the UVs and textures. So a very good program that I heard people use is 3ds Max. I used to use it a long time ago. I don't have it anymore, but I used to have a student version of it. But that's a very good program to have if you want to reduce your models, because what you're going to actually see when we actually get into the importation tutorial is that you're going to need to make the model in a very specific way so that BSP can actually read it. So in case you guys don't know, BSP runs off a very old and rickety game engine, and it can't really support large or detail heavy models that much. Therefore, it's very, very useful to have a program that lets you reduce models in a way that lets you keep the textures. What I will actually do is, in the description I will actually include a link to a mini tutorial on how to reduce your models on 3ds Max, in case anybody here has 3ds Max. That's honestly your best bet here with model reduction, because 3ds Max has the best model reduction capabilities. One quick preface before this official tutorial actually starts is this tutorial works with the Team Wolfpack mod, the Battlestation Pacific Remastered mod. This tutorial does not apply to BSMyHQ 4.0 or the vanilla version of the game. This is how things are going to be done in the Team Wolfpack mod. But anyways, without further ado, let's get straight into the first part of the actual tutorial, and that's actually preparing your model for the importation. Alrighty, and here we are in the very first official part of the tutorial, and in this part I'm actually going to show you how to properly prepare your Lightwave installation files and how to configure your Lightwave plugins, the ones you're going to use during the importation process. So, right here I actually have a virtual machine running Windows 7, just a trial edition of Windows 7 I quickly installed, and that I just installed Lightwave on it, so I'm going to simulate what's going to happen to someone who just installed Lightwave out of the blue. Anyways, so as I said, I just installed Lightwave here. The first thing that you're going to actually need to do is you're going to need to install the plugins that you're going to need to use for the actual process. Okay, so you're going to want to launch the Lightwave layout, which is the red one. That's the first step. So it may take some time, of course, especially if your PC is a bit slower. So again, this is just a virtual machine, just one that I quickly created to facilitate the tutorial. Anyways, this is the folder that you're gonna download, the LW folder, the Lightwave one, and in here you're gonna have two folders right here: the DDS plugin and an ADOS folder. And both of these folders contain plugins that you're gonna need to have in order to get the program functioning correctly. So, first one is a DDS plugin. A very simple plugin. It basically just allows you to load in DDS textures, because you're going to be working with DDS textures here, since BSP can only read the DDS textures. So you're going to need to install this. And ADOS one, this is a bit more complicated. This is the plugin that actually lets you export your files into the correct format that the game can read them in. In case you guys don't know, a little bit of a background behind this ADOS folder. This is the only exporter that we've ever used to export models. It's the one that it's the only one that's pretty much out there that's able to be used by modders. This is actually the BSM exporter that was used by the BSM devs, and I believe this one was leaked by someone a very long time ago from the actual ADOS, from one of the actual ADOS devs, back during the development of BSP. So this is not the latest one. It's not going to be able to export 100% everything. So for example, nose darts on planes, when we get into the plane importation tutorial, stuff like that doesn't work because of course BSM didn't have that, but everything else works pretty fine. So that's a little bit of a background in here. So let's take a look now. So if it asks you to allow access, you can just click allow. It doesn't really matter. It's not going to access the internet for you. I just click allow because it's easier. Anyways, yeah, if it actually decides to load. Anyways, this is the interface of Lightwave layout. So the first thing that you're going to need to do is you're going to need to copy some files over. So you want to have the ADOS folder open on one side, like that. And actually, what you want to do is you actually want to have this closed. I forgot about that. So if you have a Lightwave layout open, you're going to go ahead and close it. And then you're going to go inside of your, whatever you installed, your actual Lightwave. So it's going to be usually in program files 86, because it's a 32-bit program. And then in the folder new tech, and then 3D9. Okay, so what you're going to need to do is, first of all, you're going to need to go into the exporter. So here you have your files, right? So the first thing that you're going to want to do is actually go into your plugins folder, and you actually want to copy over the MW exporter.p. That's the main actual plugin file. Again, this is a very slow virtual machine. Probably should give it more RAM. It's going to take some time, but it doesn't matter. We can move on to the next one. Alright, anyways, the next file that you're gonna need to move is the MMOD exporter.ini, which is this file right here, and you are going to move it into your C folder. Whichever one is your C folder, like that. You're gonna move it or copy it. My god, this virtual machine is so slow. Anyways, after that, we're gonna go into the dev.il.dll, and you're gonna copy it into the Lightwave programs folder. Programs, yes, programs. Just make sure I got that correctly. Programs, like that. I'm gonna paste it in here. Okay, and once that's done, the next step is, and then one last thing, once you have actually copied all of the files previously, what you're actually going to want to do is take your entire ADOS folder, copy it, and paste it into your C drive, your regular Windows C drive. It has to be your C drive. And by the way, if you get this error right here, which should not happen to most of you right here, is you actually need to install DirectX 9. And that should actually be included in the folder I gave you, the Lightwave folder. If you go into ADOS, you're just going to need to run this real quick, and it will go you through and it will guide you through the whole process very simply. Alrighty, and once you have moved over the files for the ADOS plugin and installed the DirectX 9 if you needed to, the last thing that you need to do is of course move the DDS plugin over. So we're going to use the Windows 32-bit version over here, the pb.dds, and then we're going to go straight into the plugins folder. So program files, then a new tech, plugins, like that. And we're going to paste it into the plugins folder, just alongside the MW exporter, and that's it. Now all you need to do is, if you had Lightwave layout open, you're gonna go ahead and restart it real quick, just like that, and you're gonna relaunch it. And then once it's relaunched, you're gonna head over to the Utilities tab. You're gonna click on Add Plugins down here, and then you're gonna go over to your plugins folder. Then you're gonna add them one by one. So the MW exporter, it should say 1 plugins have successfully been added, and then do the same thing for the pb.dds, just like that. And there we go, very simple. And the next thing that you're gonna do is you're gonna get over to edit, and you're gonna click on edit menu layout, and then over here you're actually gonna click on search. You're gonna type in MMOD, MMOD, like that. Once you have found it, you're gonna drag that one, click and drag over above file. So you can see right now it actually appeared up there. This is the main MMOD plugin. In case you guys don't know, MMOD is the name of the file format that BSP's models are in, and that's what you're gonna do basically. Then you're gonna search for comments, item comments. Make sure it says item comments. You're actually gonna click and drag it underneath MMOD, so it appears right there, just like that. And now you have it set up like that. There's one more thing that you're gonna want to do before you close out of Lightwave layout. You're actually gonna want to make it minimized like that, not make it full screen. You're gonna want to drag the right side of the screen a little bit towards the left, like this. You're gonna click on Windows, and let me just make sure, Scene Editor, not Windows, sorry, Scene Editor, and you're gonna click on Classic Scene Editor. You're gonna drag this as much as you can till it fits the top left part, like that. And then you're just gonna drag this all the way down, like that. You don't need to know exactly what this is yet. I will go into more in depth about both of the parts of Lightwave layout once we actually get to the Lightwave layout part. So now, if you actually close the program and you reopen it, it should save your layout to how it was before, so you don't need to do this every time, just like that. Okay, and now let's proceed to the part of the program that you're going to be probably using the most throughout this whole process, and that is the modeler, the purple one. You don't need to install any plugins here. All you need to do is just set it up properly. So the first thing that you would want to do is, of course, make it minimized, just like the Lightwave layout. Drag the right side of the screen a little bit over to the right. Maybe that's a little too much, just like that. And then you're actually going to click W on your keyboard, and then it's going to bring up the statistics table. It should be a little window called point statistics. You can either click W, or you can click this button at the bottom right here. You're going to put this in the bottom right hand side of your screen, just like that. It should be like that. And then you're going to click on Windows, and then you're going to open the layers panel. So Windows and then layers panel, and you're going to put that in the top right, just like that. And this is the correct way of using a Lightwave modeler, at least for our purposes that we're gonna be using. And then again, if you close out of it, it should save your setup that you had previously. So when you reopen modeler, once again, it should pull up with the same exact setup as we had before. So you see the two windows open on the side and the one big one on the left. And this is exactly what you want. You don't need to do anything else. And that's how you set up your programs and your plugins to work correctly with your Lightwave. Anyways, that does it for the Lightwave preparation part. And let's get into the next part of the tutorial, in which I will teach you, in which I will introduce you to our model that I'm going to be using for this specific importation tutorial, and I'm going to teach you how to correctly prepare your model for the tutorial. Alrighty, so the next part of the tutorial will be detailing the actual preparation steps that you will need to take in order to actually be able to load your model into Modeler and stuff like that. So, first things first, the actual model that I will be using to import during this tutorial, to use to show off, is the Destroyer Samidare, from which I downloaded from Sketchfab. It is specifically this model right here. If you're using models that are licensed under the Creative Commons attribution, make sure you always credit the creators of the models that you take. So this one was made by Everlasting 17th. So yeah, so this is the model that I will be importing, the Samidare. It's a custom-made model. Once again, it's just a simple model to get started with. Anyways, so when you download the model, first things first, the format of the actual model should be in OBJ. So this one is an FBX, which means that you're going to need to have some kind of other model program that will let you convert that model format into OBJ. Now, there's several good modelers out there that can do that. 3ds Max, again, as another recommendation. If you have that, that's a very good one. Blender is free. Blender can also do that. Just import it into Blender and export it as an OBJ. In fact, I'm going to launch Blender right now to be able to show you guys how to do it. So again, FBX is just another model format. Preferably you don't want that. As I said, you should have it in OBJ. Next up is the textures. So all of these textures right here, for my model that I downloaded, they are in a PNG format. You can see it says .tj, but at the end right here it says PNG, so not sure what he did there, but doesn't matter. Basically, if you're not familiar with how textures work, there's 3 basic textures for them. There's a color map, which is the basic color texture. Then you have the bump map, which is usually purple. All video games mostly use it, and the bump map is basically adds they make the model have bumps and reflections in places where they're normally flat, so that creates like a 3D illusion. And the specular map, this one mostly is mostly for reflections, so the appearance of metal and stuff like that. So all of your textures should have those. If there's a texture that doesn't have a specular map or doesn't have a bump map, you're gonna need to well, you technically don't need to create yourself, but it would be good if you have a plugin. If you had a plugin, for example, I know that Photoshop has a very good plugin that lets you create bump maps yourself, the purple ones. So if you have that and you know how to use it, then you're more than welcome to go ahead and use that yourself. Otherwise, you don't technically need to have bump maps and specular maps for all of them. I'm going to show you what we're going to do instead after that, if you don't have bump maps or specular maps. But anyways, this is Blender, free 3D modeler program. You can download it off of their website. Anyways, you're going to go ahead and import it. Yeah, I'm going to go ahead and import the FBX file right here. So let me really quickly navigate to it. Alright, there it is, the Samidare. So you're gonna import the FBX file, and there they are. There it is, the Samidare. Pretty good model. Doesn't reach quite the levels of other models such as the World of Warships ones, but still pretty good. So very important part of the importation that you're gonna need to realize is that all models in BSP have to have 3 angled vertices. Now, if you download a custom model, especially like a custom model from like Sketchfab or something like that, they're probably not gonna be 3 angled vertices. So what do I mean by 3 angled vertices? So if you can see right here, for example, let's take a look at a simple polygon over here. Okay, so this box over here, right? So you can see how it has 4 angles. It's a box. You can't have it be like that. What you're gonna need to do is you're gonna need to find, which I mentioned, this is what I mentioned about in the introduction. You're gonna need to have some sort of modeling software that will let you reduce your polygons. And when they do that, this triangle for this square right here, for example, will be split in two, and it'll be two triangles. So the MMOD exporter that we're gonna use later on down the line, it can handle any polygons that's higher than 3 angles. Therefore, you're going to need some sort of model editor that will let you reduce your stuff. So just to show you what it would actually look after it's been reduced, I will actually go ahead and reduce this one myself, and then I will reload it into Blender so I can show you guys what I actually mean by 3 angle vertices. Alrighty, so I just went into another 3D modeler software that I have, and I have just reduced the model. So let's take a look at what it looks like. So there you go. So this is what I meant by 3 angle vertices. So you can see that the square that we were looking at previously has now been split in two, and now it's 2 triangles. And you can see that all of these are not triangles everywhere. The model quality hasn't been changed that much, and the most important thing that you need to make sure that happens when you reduce your model, if you have to. Just to be clear, if your model already has triangles everywhere and doesn't have 4 angle polygons, then you don't need to reduce your model, essentially. You only need to do this technically if you have more than 3 angle polygons. And there is actually a way, if you're not sure if your model has 3 angle or 4 angle polygons, there is actually a way to check, which I will show you a bit later on in the Lightwave modeler application. There is a really easy way to check that. So as you can see right now, this is what you want. And one incredibly important thing that you must make sure to do when you reduce your models is you must make sure that the UV coordinates and the texture coordinates are kept as they are, because otherwise the textures are not going to fit on this model if you reduce it too much. So don't reduce it too much. Maybe 70, 60%, something like that. Make sure your textures actually fit on the model. Anyways, now that you have it like that, you can go ahead and export this as OBJ if you haven't already. So you need to click on export and then wavefront and then parentheses OBJ. So I'm going to go ahead and do that real quick. And I'm going to save it as Samidare complete export OBJ, and now it should take some time to export. And there you go, I think it is done. Okay, after that you can close out of Blender or whatever software you used, and if you want you can make sure it's good. You can actually, if you have model viewer, especially if you're running on Windows 10, you can just double click on the OBJ file and it will bring up the 3D viewer that Windows has. Now, this model of course does not have textures yet. We're gonna apply textures to it once we actually get inside of the Lightwave process. So you can see right here, it looks pretty good. It's a pretty good model. Again, this is downloaded from Sketchfab. I'm just gonna be using this as an example. Anyways, the next part that you're gonna need to do in the preparation step, you're gonna need to make sure that all of your ship textures are in DDS. So I'm gonna go ahead and open up GIMP. This is GIMP. It's basically an alternative to paid programs like Photoshop, something like that. So I'm gonna go ahead and actually open up all of these texture files in GIMP. Let me navigate to these real quick. There we go. Okay, and now you can load all of these in. And especially if they're big textures, it's probably gonna take you some time. So again, to recap, there's 3 texture types that you're gonna need to use in BSP. It's the color map, the specular map, and the bump map. And again, if you don't have bump maps for certain textures, it's not a terrible problem. They may look a little worse without the proper bump map textures, but honestly, if it's with small details, it won't really matter. The people probably won't notice. Anyways, so this is your texture, right? So what you're gonna do is actually gonna go to File, and then you are going to go, I believe it's Export As. It's been a while since I did this. Let's see. Is it Export As? And then you're gonna change the file name to DDS. You can remove everything else, just DDS. Let's see if this is properly. Yeah, okay. So save as DDS. You don't need the compression, but you do want to have mip maps on preferably. So what mip maps are? Basically, Bitmaps are lower resolution versions of the same texture, and if you generate the bitmaps here in the DDS format, you can actually create lower resolution versions of the texture right inside this file, which means that if your model is running a bit slow on your PC, for example, what you can do in game is if you enable this bitmaps, you can actually change your settings in the BSP to low object settings, and it will actually automatically switch. It will actually automatically switch to a lower resolution of the texture. So very useful if you have bitmaps. So again, this is the DDS plugin for GIMP. You're going to need to get that yourself. And then what you're going to need to do now is you're actually going to need to go through each one of these textures, and you're going to need to save them as DDS. So I'm going to go do that real quick. And just one quick mention, you actually don't need to if you have flags on your model, models like Silent Hunter often do, you don't need to have the flags. You're going to delete the flags in the model editor, so you can just ignore the flag textures because you're going to be putting them on the model actually once you get to the importation step. Alrighty, and here goes the last one. So what I did now basically again is I resaved all of the textures in the DDS format. So if you go into the list of textures right here, you can see that every single texture copy has its PNG counterpart and the DDS counterpart. Okay, so this is what you want right here. What you can do is, what I often do is to keep everything organized, I actually create a new folder for the DDS textures. I usually call it something like textures high res, just so they're both not in the same folder, so it doesn't get confusing. So what you can do is, in the search bar, you can just type in DDS, and it will bring you all of the DDS textures. You can go Control X to cut, and then paste them into the textures high res, just like that. There you go. So now all of these textures should be saved properly like that. Anyways. And that pretty much does it for the preparation stages. Now we are actually ready to get into the modeler importation part of the process. Alright, so I have moved this file over to a new place where it's easier for me to be able to get to it and to load it. Anyways, the next step, of course, we're going to be actually launching a Lightwave modeler, which is the purple one. And I'm going to familiarize you right now with all the different controls that Lightwave has, the Lightwave modeler has, and how to navigate and all that stuff. First of all, you should have these two windows open right here. If you don't, then you should roll the tutorial back a little bit to learn how to actually get these two windows going. Anyways, first things first. These four different windows right here, they're called viewports. They are basically there so you can view your model from different parts, from different perspectives, basically from different angles. In the top left of each viewport, you can see that it actually tells you the current angle that it's viewing it from. So you can see up here it says perspective, top, front, and left. I don't suggest changing these because just so you can keep up with my tutorial, especially if you're a beginner to 3D modeling. You can change these. If you click them, you can actually change the viewports. I just suggest keeping them like this. Next up is the movement controls in the top right. So this is how you can actually navigate your different viewports like this. If you click and hold with your mouse and drag around, you can actually start moving your stuff. And this is the movement, this is the rotation, and this is the zoom. And this button, the blue button right here, you don't need to use it. It just makes that one viewport maximized. That's all I need to know. You can also move in other. If you move in one window, it'll move you in all the windows at the same time, and if you zoom out, it'll do the same, just like that. Okay, so that's the movement controls and the basics. Again, it's gonna take you some time to get used to it. You don't need to expect to know everything right away. It took me a long time to get familiarized with that, so that's just how it goes. Next up, in the bottom left right here, very important, it will actually tell you, once you're dragging your cursor around a viewport, it will actually tell you your position of the current cursor in metric. You can, if you don't like metric, you can change in the Lightwave settings to imperial. I just like using metric because it's simpler. Yeah, so that's the position. Next up is these three buttons right here. These buttons are different modes of selection of the polygons. You can select individual polygons. Whenever you start up Lightwave, I suggest just clicking on polygons straight away. You know if your polygons, if your cursor is like an X, if you're on points, it's gonna be like a cross, and polygons, it's an X. You're gonna be on polygons 99% of the time. That 1% of the time that you're not gonna be on polygons, you're gonna be on points, and you're only wanna go on points in a very specific part of the tutorial, that in which you need to move the point specifically. But in all the other parts, in all the other parts of the importation tutorial, you can be on polygons. Edges you never use, because edges simply are not required here in this sort of tutorial. Anyways, next up is the layers panel. So the way Lightwave Modeler works, you can actually have multiple objects open at the same time, and you can open each one of these objects and they can have different layers inside of them. You can see I can select more layers. You can actually rename these layers to whatever you want and just double click on them like that, and then put the name and then click OK. We're gonna go more into that later. Next up is the polygon statistics tab. This is also a way of selecting your polygons based on their surface names. The only two things that you're gonna need to really pay attention here, three things that you're gonna need to pay attention here, is this total plus. Over here, it'll tell you your total number of polygons for the entire model, and you will be able to select them all by clicking the plus button, and deselecting all of them by clicking the minus button. Next up is the surf none right here. How Lightwave works basically, it lets you select different. It separates the model and the polygons by their surface names, and those surface names then you can assign textures to, and that's why in Lightwave model you can have multiple textures at the same time. And the last thing that you're going to pay attention to, as I mentioned in the preparation tutorial, is these vertices right here. So as I said, your models need to be 3 vertices only, and when you load your model in, it'll actually tell you how many vertices are 3 angled, how many vertices are 4 or more. Basically, you don't want to have 4 or more. You want to have all your vertices, preferably 3 angled vertices or less. Anyways, those are the very basics of Lightwave Modeler. Again, you should familiarize yourself a little bit with the controls, stuff like that. And let's actually load our model in. So we're going to go ahead and click on File in the top left and click on Load Object. Don't click on Import, click on Load. Always click on Load. Anyways, I'm going to navigate really quickly to the part of the tutorial, which part of the files which I saved. There we go. So I saved it samidare complete.obj. And if it asks you to load in textures, for now you're gonna go ahead and click on No to All, because we're gonna be assigning the textures manually. And there we go. It shouldn't take too long. So this is your model. You're gonna have to zoom in a little bit, probably move it around a little bit, and there we go. That's your model, like that. And there we go. It looks like a pretty nice model. Of course, for now it's white because it doesn't have any textures, but we're gonna apply the textures ourselves. Anyways, if you modify the unnamed object, you have it extra right here. You can just click File and then Close Object. Anyways, the first thing that you should preferably do whenever you load in a new object, especially an OBJ object in Lightwave, what you should actually do, you should actually go ahead and click on File, and then you're gonna click on Save All Objects. So Lightwave has its own file format that it has to save to and modify from. The Lightwave can't save in OBJ file, so you have to go ahead and save any OBJ file you open. You have to save in Lightwave's format. The Lightwave's format is .lwo, Lightwave object. So click Yes, and then you're gonna. What I usually do is I usually make a new folder specifically for this purpose. I usually call it import ready, and then I'm gonna make a new folder in here. I'm gonna just call it samidare, and then inside the unit folder, what you need to do is create a file called object with the capital O, and then in here I'm just gonna save it as samidare complete.lwo. You can save it like that, and then if you actually go into the folder that you created, import ready samidare objects, you can see they saved a new file called samidare.lwo with the purple icon, and that's what you want. This is the Lightwave's native format. So now one preface before we actually get into the actual Lightwave modeler part is you want to make sure you save very often, because Lightwave 9.5 is a very old version of the program, and especially if you're running the 32-bit version of the program, which we are, it's going to crash an awful lot, especially when working with large models. So get used to going to file, save all object, oftentimes, so that you keep saving it, so you don't lose everything in case it crashes. I've lost very many imports that way, and it's very frustrating. So learn how to save. And finally, the very last thing that we need to take care of in the preparation stage is you need to make sure that your model is scaled correctly, and you need to make sure that your model is rotated correctly. So first of all, let's take care of the rotation, since that's easier. Basically, all you need to know if your model is rotated correctly is when you're looking at the model from the starboard side, aka from the right side, into the model, like this, you need to make sure that the Z and the X right here both say minus Z and minus X. In this case right here, the Z is plus, which means that we need to make sure it says X minus on the right side and Z minus on the right side. And let me familiarize you right now with some of the tools that we actually use with Lightwave Modeler. Is you can either go over here and modify, and you can click on the controls right here. You have rotate, move, everything else, or you can use the hotkeys on your keyboard. So Y is for the rotation tool. You can see that my cursor changes when I use the rotation tool, and now we're going to actually rotate it. So one important thing is when you rotate from the top viewport, the top left one, make sure your cursor is exactly at 0, 0. So pay attention to the bottom left hand side, and it must say 0, 0 exactly, like this. And then you're gonna click and hold, and then in the bottom left side where it would tell you the position of your cursor, it now tells you the angle, right? So you're gonna rotate it. So you can see I'm slowly rotating it, and make sure it says 90 degrees, like that. That was 91. So if you can also undo at any time. So quickly Control Z to undo, and you can try again, like this, 90 degrees, and there you go. So now it says X minus and Z minus, like that. That's the correct rotation. Next up, you need to make sure that your model is scaled correctly. So at the bottom right viewport, you can use the measure controls right here. So you can put your cursor at the top, at the front, and at the rear of your ship, and you can see right here it's 90 centimeters. So that's probably way too small. So you need to go on your favorite preferred Google browser, and you're gonna type in the actual historical name. If it's a historical ship, you're gonna type in the name of the ship, and you're gonna look at, I'm gonna look at Wikipedia right here, and you're gonna look for the length value. So length 103 meters, and yeah, so 107, 103, let's go with 107. So that means that we roughly need to have in each half, you divide that number by 2, which gives you roughly maybe 53, 54, somewhere between 53 and 54. Let's do 53. That means that at each one of these ends, in the bottom left hand side, the Z value should be 53 or 54 meters. So right now it's 77 centimeters, so we need to make it much bigger. You're gonna zoom out a little bit, and then you're gonna, on the modify tab, you're gonna click the size under the transform tab, the size control. You're gonna, in the bottom right hand side, you're gonna put your cursor again at 0, 0. Make sure in the bottom left hand side it says 0, 0. And then before you do that, actually, you're gonna put your cursor over to where the length value should be at. So you need to zoom all the way out, and R is gonna be 53 meters. So 53, somewhere like that. Let's do 53.5, like that. So remember where your cursor was. So you have these darker lines over here. Some of the lines are darker, some of them are lighter, so you can easily distinguish where you need to expand the model to. So here's the 53.5, just like that. So it's just after this darker line over here. So you put your cursor at 0, 0, and you expand the model. Click and hold until it reaches roughly that part where your cursor was, just like that. So let's see, 53, yeah, that's pretty good, 53, like that, and on the other side it's 60, that's pretty big actually. I think I'm actually going to scale it down a little bit, that's a little too big, so maybe like that. So 56, 48, it's 56 plus 48, yeah, let's make it a bit bigger actually, just a tiny bit bigger, maybe 1%, there you go, 1% scale, and that should be good. Of course, once you get into the game, you can scale it up or down depending on your requirements. Anyways, yeah, that's it. And now it should be scaled up. Remember, go to File, Save As. You should save oftentimes during the process. And yep, there you go. So now your Samidare model, my Samidare model, is correctly scaled and correctly rotated. Remember, make sure X minus on the right side and Z minus on the left side. And yeah, now we can actually get into the actual proper importation process. So the first step of the proper importation process is called texturing. Alrighty, so to get started, the first thing that you are going to need to know about the model and the way that textures work in really any 3D model format out there is the textures are usually mapped to so-called UV maps. Now UV maps are basically just texture coordinates. They're basically like coordinates on a model, just like, you know, any of these points over here, except they are strictly for textures, for the use with textures. So it's a map that basically takes a texture, and then at a certain point the texture folds, and it keeps folding until it wraps around the entire model in the way that you want it to, and that's how people create UV textures. You don't need to know too much about UV textures in order to do this tutorial, because we're not going to be creating our own UV textures. We're not going to be modifying them, at least not in this tutorial. If you know how to do it, then you can go ahead and create your own textures, but I'm not going to be going to in this tutorial. So this model should have only one UV map because it's a custom model. If you take other models, like usually like World of Warships models, it may get a little bit more complicated than this. Anyways, our textures have been prepared already. I prepared the textures in the preparation stage, so there's nothing you need to do there. Now let's get familiarized with our main place where we're gonna actually texture. So up here, you're gonna click on this button called Surface Editor. The Surface Editor is where you're gonna be doing all your texture work. So you can see right here, we have our Samidare object over here, and you have a bunch of surface names over here. The person who made this model already separated some of the surface names. As I said before, you can also select these surfaces over here by clicking on them. So let's for example say you click on the anti-aircraft texture, you can click plus, and there you go. Now you have it selected, just like that. You can see it's highlighted yellow. If you want to deselect it, you can either press total minus, or down here in the selection on the number. Either one works. Or you can just click the minus right here, although that'll just select what you have selected over here. So you have the hull, you have whatever this is, the metal, whatever the other ones are. Okay, so now the first thing that you should do is we should go through each one of these and see if they are mapped correctly. So unfortunately, what happens oftentimes when you reduce a model, like I did, I had to, in the previous step, if you don't remember, I had to reduce the model so we have only triangles, only 3 angled vertices. What may often happen if you do that is the UV maps may get messed up a little bit. So this is probably what happened here. I don't know yet since I haven't textured this, but we're gonna see right now what happened, and if it's messed up, I'm gonna show you how to properly fix it. So here we go, and this is also why you shouldn't apply high reduction numbers. So you should only maybe do 90-80%. If you do any lower than that, then the UV maps get all mangled up. If they get mangled up here, basically at any point throughout this tutorial, if you notice that your UV maps are being mangled up, despite, like, if I try to fix it and it still doesn't work for you, then what you probably need to do is go back to your model and apply a lower reduction percentage in whichever program you use to reduce. Again, you don't need to reduce at all if you already have only 3 angled vertices. Anyways, yeah, so let's start texturing this. Okay, so if you remember when I was showing you the textures, you should have 3 different textures for each surface. So a color map, a specular map, and a bump map. So here's where those 3 come into play. So let's take the first one. Let's go one by one. So this is 10 default smoothing. So in order to know what this is, you're gonna select it over here, and then you're gonna click this plus, and it'll highlight it over here, so you can see this becomes yellow. Okay, so that's the wiring around the torpedo tube. So this instantly tells me that probably there's been something went wrong with the UV maps, because there's another map over here, but it's not highlighted. It's not included in this. So let's see. We might have to do some fidgety work over here. I actually kind of want to start from something that's simple. So for example, hull, I can already see that that's probably the biggest surface over here. If you go into your surface list, this number right here tells you how many polygons belong to that surface, and you can see the hull one is the biggest one. So I usually suggest starting from the biggest one, just so it gives you an idea of what you're looking at. Okay, so let's expand this so we can see this. And you have all these different T's over here. So you have the only 3 ones that you need for right now are color, specularity, and bump. You don't need any of these other ones. Later on, you're going to use the velocity and diffuse when we actually finish texturing. But for now, just focus on color, specularity, and diffuse. You don't need to worry about any of these numbers over here. Yeah. So color. If any of these T's are white, that means that there's a texture assigned to them. So if you click on a T, it brings up this texture editor. Here you can actually assign your texture to the correct UV map. So for every one of these, make sure it says the projection says UV, and make sure the UV map right here's where you need to choose the correct UV map. I only have one object, so I only have one UV map, so that makes it simple for me. If you have more than one UV map, you need to make sure you're using the correct UV map. So you're gonna click on image, and then you're gonna click load image. So this is where we browse to our save the textures for the Samidara. So we're gonna go into, remember, you're clicking the high resolution DDS textures. So let's see, is there maybe a way that I can see these textures? No. Okay, that's fine. So anti-aircraft. So this is the hull. So let's look up for hull. Okay, here we go. Hull A4K.DDS. Let's see if this is it. Okay, so if you see now it applied the texture, you're gonna click use texture. By the way, if your model is like this, if it's still white, even if you apply the textures, that usually means you're not in the correct projection. You need to click on texture over here. Then it's gonna show you the textures. If you're in smooth shade or white shade, then it's not gonna give you the textures. Okay, so looking at this, I can already see there's been some UV map mismatching going on. So I can see that the gun, for example, here does not look like that's the correct texture. The anti-aircraft guns also, the lifeboats, some of these anti-aircraft guns, and the propellers. So we're gonna have to fix that ourselves. So let me show you how to fix that if you have this problem like me. It's not that hard. So you need to select these polygons individually, and then you need to rename their surface name to the correct surface name. So let's start off by taking this gun, for example. So this gun looks incorrectly textured. So what you need to do now is you need to select this gun, all the polygons of this gun, and we're gonna change the surface name. So how do you select the gun? So there's a few different ways. You can hold the left mouse button and drag like this. It'll start selecting stuff, although I don't recommend doing that because it's very inaccurate. What you instead can do is hold the right mouse button and start drawing the circle. You can draw circles around the things that you want to select, like this. And make sure you're doing this in wireframe. If you do it in smooth shade or a texture or any of the projections in which you just see the 3D model, in which you can't see through the model, then it'll just select the top layer. You have to make sure you're in wireframe. There we go. And then now you can see, you can use the different viewports to make sure that you select stuff properly. So if you want to deselect something, you can either just hold the right mouse button and hover over them to deselect them, or you can also draw the circle, just like that. There you go. Okay, and then now we just gotta move around a little bit, make sure that we just have selected the gun. And once we have, you are going to go ahead and click I on your keyboard. You're gonna go ahead and click edit all, and then you're gonna rename it to whatever the surface name is for the gun. So you can open up the surface names. I think it's main gun dot smoothing. You can try the different ones if you're not sure which one it is. So let's use main gun underscore smoothing. Make sure that the spelling is correct so it goes into the correct category, and then you're gonna click OK. And now you see it's white again. Why is it white? Because we haven't assigned a texture to main gun smoothing yet. And if you select it right now, you can see that the gun is actually selected. So let's see if we have changed the UV map properly. Open up the UV or the surface editor once again, and let's go into main gun smoothing. Let's open up the texture. Make sure this says UV and Samidari complete. Load image, and let's find the texture that's for the main gun. There we go, main gun A.DDS, and there we go. That looks correct to me. Looks pretty good. It seems like this one is also a little bit messed up, but we can fix that too. Maybe that's just a thing from the reduction. Yeah, but apart from that, the gun looks pretty good. This is how it should look like. Anyways, yeah. So in the meantime, let me actually show you how to do specularity and bump. So you have the color, right? Hull A4K.DDS. You click on specularity. Also make sure it says UV, Samidari complete, or whatever your UV map is, and then you're gonna select your specular map. So mine is _S. You can see your texture map over here. And then for bump, you're gonna go ahead and click UV, summary diary complete, load image, N. Usually N is the bump map. And there we go. Now you can't, of course, see any differences visually because you're in a 3D editor, but in the game you will be able to see the difference. So let's do the same thing for main gun, really quick. So main gun, specular, just like that. UV, and then main gun, and there we go. Now those two have proper textures. Okay, so now I'm actually gonna go through the rest of the hull. Since we already textured the hull, I can already see there's some other mistakes, like this torpedo tube, for example. Doesn't look like that's the proper one. The lifeboats, the other gun. Let me actually do the other gun right now, and let's see if we can move this as well. So again, I'm drawing the circle because it's easier, like that. Now I have it selected, and again I need to go down and deselect anything that's underneath that I selected by accident. Zoom in a little bit, look around, make sure I have not selected anything else. Click I on my keyboard, edit all, and I'm just gonna change the front to main gun. And there we go. The other gun is also fixed, just like that. And while I'm here, let me also do the torpedo tube. I think the torpedo tube is also part of main gun, although I'm not sure. Yeah, so this is where you can get tricky. You see there's a lot of stuff around the thing. Now you need to do a little bit of fidget work. I'm gonna go ahead and select the torpedo tube, and then I'm gonna start deselecting things that are not part of the torpedo tube. So for example, you can see that these two are not part of the torpedo tube. These things down there, like that. I think that's about it. Maybe something on the bottom. No, you can see right here it gives you the number of total selected polygons, just like that. Oh, and also make sure you're in polygon selection mode. This won't work if you're not in polygon selection mode. And that looks like it. So let's try clicking I again. Click edit all. If there's a lot of polygons, it may take us a long time. So main gun underscore smoothing. Click OK. Looks like it is still kind of messed up. Maybe there's another texture for it. Let's check it out. So main gun. Let's see. Mine launcher, main gun. Well, if you have the original model, what it's actually quite useful to do is you can actually load the original model. Oops, not that one. You can actually load the original model that you have, the OBJ, the one with the, if you reduce your model, the one with the 4-angled polygons, this one, and you can actually take a look and compare the surface names. So let's see. So what's the mine launcher? Okay, so he called the torpedo tubes mine launchers. Okay, I see. Makes sense. Yeah, so if you have the original OBJ, you can actually take it and compare it for easy comparison. Yeah, so I'm not sure why he called it mine launcher. Very interesting design decision there, but I guess it's okay. So I believe this was also part of the, no, was it not? Let me check real quick. Okay, so that's mine launcher, metal, main gun. Okay, there they are. So which part of surface name is this? Hull. Oh, strobes. Okay, cool. So one very useful thing to know when you're editing models in Lightwave is you can actually hide parts of the model that get in the way of your editing. So if you click on view, you can go ahead and click on hide selected over here. And now that hid it temporarily, and to unhide it, you can click on hide over here. So let me go again and select this polygon real quick. Okay, so now what you can do is, you don't need, if you already have it in a separate surface, you don't need to do the circle, draw the circle around. Just select the surface and then zoom out, and then deselect all the ones that you don't want to work with. So just draw circles around them. There you go. So now you have just this selected. And let's see, mine launcher underscore smoothing. So I'm gonna rename this to mine launcher. Okay, so let's texture mine launcher now. Mine launcher dot smoothing. Again, you can see since I opened up the other OBJ, now I have another one open here, but we're just working with this one. So click T. Let's see, mine launcher dot And there we go. The torpedo tube is correctly textured. It's not a mine launcher. I don't know why you called it a mine launcher. And you have this one is also textured too now, since they were both already using the same texture name. Anyways, yeah. So what you need to do now is if you're experiencing this problem, you can just go through all the other ones. Just to be clear, if you're not experiencing the UV map problems, you don't need to do any of this. What I did right now. So I'm probably gonna have like a time lapse video for the rest of me fixing this problem. Okay, so one quick thing to mention. So I just renamed the wires or the ropes from these things over here. So for ropes, you're gonna do something different. You're not gonna do UV projection. Let me show you what you're gonna do. So this is let me select the ropes one. So the stropes. Let me just make sure it's correct. So I select stropes. I click plus, and you can see it selected the ropes around the ship. So in here he called it stropes. Find the names. Anyways, you're gonna click on front. You're not gonna click UV, and basically what I usually do is I usually just select the whole texture, front and then whole, and then you can see that actually it makes it gray. It selects the color, it selects the texture you give it, and front projection just basically gives it one color that's representative of all the texture together. It basically averages all the colors out. In here I think it will be better if I make it black. So let me try and find like a black texture maybe here. So not really sure which one of these is black. But what you can always do, if you don't have like a universal texture, you can go into the BSP folder. So let me navigate to my BSP folder really quick. So I go into your BSP textures folder, so models textures, and you can just select any texture from the mod over here. So let's take a texture that's black. It can be any random one. So let's take this one, ACO54, and there you go. Now you can see front projection. Now it's actually black, and it'll show up like that in the game. And there you go. Now again, for ropes, you also need to put specularity and bump. But what you're gonna do instead, you're gonna click front, and then you're gonna go into your BSP folder, and you're gonna search for a texture called spec.dds. This is the universal specular texture map. You're gonna use this for every single specular bump map that you do not have. Every single specular bump map that you do not have, use spec.dds, and then for the bump map, you're gonna use a texture called bump.dds. There you go, bump.dds, spec.dds, and bump.dds. Those are the universal specular bump textures if you don't have specular bump textures for any given set of textures. And remember, always periodically, you can close this now. Well, I can. And periodically go to File, Save All Objects, because you never know when Lightwave is unfortunately going to crash. So you will notice that I am actually deleting the anti-aircraft guns as I'm going through the texturing part, because you don't actually need to have your guns on the model, because since we already have plenty of anti-aircraft guns in the latest mod, I'm just going to be using those ones in the game. But I am going to be importing the main guns over here so I can show you how gun importation actually works, and the torpedo tubes over here. But this is actually something that you're gonna do. You're not gonna keep those guns on the model as it is right now. You're actually gonna separate them into a separate layer up here. So just as a heads up. So another thing that's really useful to know, if you by any chance accidentally click on another T, all you need to do is just hold left shift and then click it again, and it'll remove it. Or if you want to do it manually, just click on it and then just click remove textures. So throughout all of these surfaces, you should only have 3 white T's: color, specularity, and bump. If you have any other one that's not correct, then you need to remove it. So remember, just 3 T's for now: color, specularity, and bump. Alright, so I have just came across this metal surface. It is the one, as you can see, if I select it, it is the one for the railings. So for stuff like that, I also recommend doing the exact same thing as you did with the wire. Is select a front and select a black texture. So if you already added a texture in Lightwave, you don't need to click load image, you can just select it from this list over here. So I'm just gonna select the one that I previously selected, and then remember, go on front and then click spec.dds and then front and then bump.dds, just like that. And remember, of course, periodically saving. So here, as you can see, I accidentally, when I was renaming the surfaces, I accidentally included these parts into staff 4 smoothing, which is apparently the incorrect surface, because their UV map is, as you can see, incorrect over here, so they must be using a different texture. So what you need to do in case you do something like this, it happens all the time, it's a common mistake. What I would do is I would deselect the ones in the middle. Those are the correctly textured ones. As you can see, these have correct textures, and if you zoom in into the one in front, this one, you can see that, well, this one does not have correct textures. You can see it's all messed up. So select all of them, then you can draw a circle around the middle ones to deselect them, zoom out, and then of course you're gonna click I on your keyboard. You can call them whatever you want, because you're gonna be adding your own textures. I'm just gonna call it staff 2 because that's the name of the textures. It's simple for me. Anyways, and then deselect it. Now they're part of a separate surface. You can see there's another surface created, staff 2. If you select it, you can see I highlighted those. There we go. Very simple. You click on T, and then I need to highlight staff 2.dds, and there we go. And that looks correct. I think that looks correct. Now it looks correct. And remember, once again, specular bump. Just go color, specular bump, color, specular bump, color, specular bump. Just like that over and over again until you're done with the creation. So it appears to me that here we actually don't have a bump map for staff 2. That's fine. So just click the specular map. And as I said before, you're going to go UV. And then you're going to select the placeholder bump map, so bump.dds from the BSP textures folder. Really simple like that. It's not gonna look super accurate, but it's still gonna give it like a shine, so it doesn't look completely shineless. And remember, periodically saving. And there we go. I think this is it. I think I got all of them. I of course hid part of the hull, so it makes it easier for me to actually go through the polygons and make sure I got all of them. But yeah, so there's only one thing left that looks incorrect to me, and that's these little portholes on the side of the ship right here. So these are part of the hull, I believe. Yeah, they are. Okay, so they're part of the hull. So oh yeah, and the lifeboats over here. Forgot about those. But everything else apart from that appears to be good. Oh, and this part back there, did not notice that. Yeah. Okay. So and the propellers. I'm gonna go through all of them, and I'm gonna fix them one by one. By the way, for the flags, you don't need the flags. In BSP, you're gonna be adding your flags manually. Or not manually. The game handles the flags. It gives it custom animations, so you don't need the flags 3D flag model, so just go ahead and delete that. Don't need those at all, regardless of what chip you're inputting. So I'm gonna go ahead and try to isolate all of these portholes right now, and I'm gonna give them a separate surface name. So actually right now, what I'm gonna do is I'm actually gonna Now that I have them all selected, all the portholes, I'm actually going to create a new custom surface name, and I'm going to call it just portholes, just like that. So I can, I don't think there was a texture for the portholes necessarily in the files, unless I missed a few textures. So you can see there's the new one I selected. So let's see if there is an actual texture for the portholes. Maybe this. Well, this is the part where you'd actually go through all the textures one by one, seeing if any of them actually make the portholes look good. So I don't think there is one. Unless, oh, never mind, there they are. Staff 1a.dds. Good thing I found them. Staff 1a, and there you go. Now the portholes look correct, and I'm gonna do the same thing I've always done and just go through the specular and bump. So you can see right here, I am actually I have the lifeboats again, and these are just another part of the model that got renamed on accident during the reduction process. So what I'm gonna do instead, I'm gonna just go ahead and click OK, just like that. So they have a separate surface name. I made them a new surface name, just called them lifeboats. And just like with the portholes, I'm going to keep clicking on the different textures until I find the one which makes them look correct. So there we go. In this case, it's staff 3. Again, do the same exact thing as I did before. Go through the textures, and again, since staff 3, I don't think it has a UV map. Let me just make sure. Yeah, staff 3 does not have a bump map, so again, just use bump.dds, just like that. And there we go. I have just finished correctly renaming and texturing all of the back parts over here. So this took a little longer than I expected, of course, because most of the different UV maps got a little messed up by the reduction. But if you haven't reduced your models, if your models were good to begin with, you probably didn't need to do any of this, and all you were doing is just going through the textures, going camo specular bump. Now there's just a few more things that we need to take care of, a few final things that we need to take care of in the texturing part. And the first thing is, you're just going to go ahead and select all your surfaces right now, and make sure you have smoothing enabled, and make sure the smoothing says 75 degrees, like that. Afterwards, what you're going to do is you're going to click this T right here on the fuse. Actually, again, make sure that you only have the 3T, specularity, bump, and camo selected. Go into luminosity, click on front, and then you're gonna select a texture from the BSP textures folder. Texture from the BSP textures folder called blank.dds. Like that for every single one, and then you're gonna do the same thing for diffuse. So T, front, and then blank.dds, just like that. And then when you're done, by the time you're done with texturing, make sure that all of your surfaces have 5 white T's: color, luminosity, diffuse, specularity, and bump. I think I missed one of them. Staff 3. No, okay. So if at any point you see you miss some, make sure that the polygon set here doesn't say 0. If it says polygons 0, that means that that surface isn't mapped to anything, and you don't need to mess with it. So make sure that the only ones that have the T's are the ones that have a number here that's greater than 0. So you can see all of these are mapped to something. They have a number of polygons over here. So 5 white T's, no more, no less. And yeah, we are done with the texturing part. Now you may notice that your Lightwave gets very, very laggy. So that's normal. in order to counteract that, you're going to switch either to smooth shade or to weight shade, whichever one it is. I prefer to use smooth shade like that, just because it gives me a better overview of the model. So in the next part, I'm actually going to start going over the SDC. Alright, so before we actually proceed with the SDC part, there is one thing that I will have to do before we continue. So for now, we've only had just one layer when working with the ship. Now is the time to actually split up your ship into multiple different layers depending on what parts of the ship we have to do. So first things first, we're gonna have to separate the guns from the ship. So what I usually do is I leave some space over here, because I'm never exactly sure how many layers are we gonna take up. And then after a few layers, this is where I'm gonna put my guns. So I'm gonna call it main turret A. For now, just put base in parentheses, and that's where we're gonna put the 5-inch guns over here. So main gun dot smoothing, just like that. We got both of them already selected. You're gonna click Control X on your keyboard, Control X, that cuts the model, and we're gonna go Control V into this layer over here, and that's gonna paste it in here. You're gonna double click and rename this to front. Oops, misspelled that. Front. And you're gonna double click over here and rename this to rear. What's gonna happen is this ship is going to be splitting in two sometimes when it dies. That's a function in BSP that we can have. Not all ships have to have that. If you don't want your ship to have splitting, you don't need to separate these into front and rear. And I'm gonna go through the entire tutorial, and I'm gonna split, and I'm gonna be saying if you don't want your ship to split, then do this X, Y, and Z. So if you don't want your ship to split up, if it's like a really big ship, like a really big battleship you're importing like that, or an aircraft carrier, aircraft carriers, by the way, they can't split. So if you're doing an aircraft carrier, do not split in two. So you can have everything in one layer like that, and you can do the same thing I'm doing over here. Okay, so front and rear, just like that, because the Samidare over here is going to be splitting in two. That's a small ship. Anyways, back to the turret. So main turret A. So you only need one turret. You're only going to need one turret. So I'm going to be deleting one of these turrets. So let's delete the front one, because it has that weird texture thingy. So you only need one turret, since you're only going to be importing one turret for both. And then you're going to move this one to the center, and then now we have to basically make sure that the turret is completely 100% centered. It has to be completely 100% centered. The front of the turret needs to be facing the Z plus coordinate plane. So the front of the turret where the guns are needs to be facing Z plus, just like that. For now, all we're going to do is basically just center the turret. I'm going to come back to the weapons later so we can set them up properly, just like that. And you're going to need to zoom in all the way in to make sure that the turret is centered 100%. If it's even just a little bit off center, when the turret rotates in game, it's going to be very difficult to go back later and correct it, and it's going to look weird in the game. So make sure everything is 100% centered. View it on all viewports, zoom in all the way in. I believe there's a max zoom distance too. There we go, that looks pretty good. So if you zoom out, you can see it's 100% centered, just like that. The base of the turret needs to be where it is. So I think actually the way these turrets were set up, I think these were actually a little bit more down, like that. Not sure. I think this is how the turrets were supposed to be when I was looking at the model. Anyways, I'm gonna actually bring it a little bit more down. Why not? Just like that. Okay, perfect. So that's your main turret A. And for now, you're just gonna have one layer called main turret A base. That's all you're gonna have. Later on, we're gonna come back and we're gonna add more layers, and then you're gonna split up the torpedo tubes. Well, in here he called them mine layers. Not really sure why. Maybe he doesn't really know much about warships. Anyways, let me get the. I need to also get the wires. He called them stropes. Just like that. Make sure you only have these selected over here, and then you're gonna click once again Control X, so you can cut. And then leave a few spaces down there so you can have space for the other layers. Then you're gonna double click. I'm just gonna call it torpedo tube A, and then also call it base, just for the base layer. Control V in here so you can paste them, and again you only need one, so you can delete one of them and get the other one in here. And again, make sure you center it 100%. just like that. It may take some time to do all the centering, but you need to make sure you get the centering right, otherwise the guns aren't going to look good in game. There you go. The torpedo to be centered. Make sure its face is Z+. Just like that. Just like the other turret. And there we go. So now your torpedo tubes and your main gun are separate. And this is what you want. Again, you only need one. Make sure there's only one of each. Okay, so now that we remove the guns, we're back to the model. Now this is the gunless model. It should have no guns on it. That's how you want it to be. And now what we're going to do is we're actually going to start splitting up the model. We're going to start splitting up the model into two, and because this model is going to be splitting in two upon death, sometimes, not always. So the best way to do this is there's a few ways to do this. If your model is already naturally segmented like that, then what you can usually do is just, let's see, first of all you need to find a good place for it to break. So I think over here, mine is going to be over here. So find a place like that. There you go, and you're gonna select everything on the back over here, and then you're gonna zoom in and make sure that no parts from the front are actually remain in this place. So in this case, I think I'm gonna deselect this. I'm gonna deselect this, and I'm gonna deselect this part over here. And this too. Just make sure everything is nice and tidy. And then at the top, I'm also gonna try and deselect this. Yeah, it's a lot of tedious work usually, just having to deselect everything. Yeah, so this is gonna basically just split into this platform over here. I like the sound of that. That sounds good. There we go. Okay, so now once you have separated that, once you have chosen your other half of the ship, you're gonna click Control X, and then you're gonna go ahead and paste it into rear, just like that. So now you have two halves of the ship separate, just like that. So you have front and rear, and make sure, of course, save regularly, because Lightwave is an old program. Anyways, so let me show you real quick, in case you weren't able to split your ship that easily. Here's what you also can do to split it, as I like to call it, by force. If you need it to split somewhere by force, here's what you do. You go to the multiply tab and you use the knife tool. And this tool basically cuts models. So you drag it down like that. This means that it'll cut the model in two, just like that. You drag it like that. You can even move around. I don't know why it does that. If it goes off to the side like that, you don't want it to do that. So let's see if I can't move it. You usually can move it, but like, I don't know. There we go. I can move it now. So you click and drag and you move it like that, just like that, till it's straight, and then you click enter. And there you go. Now it's split over here, and now you can go ahead and select that part over here without actually having to do all the nitty-gritty work. So mine was already somewhat conveniently split, and so I didn't have to use the knife tool. But if you need to, that's how you use the knife tool. Very simple. Okay, so now that I have the model actually split up, actually I think I'm gonna have these platforms over to the other part, just like that. There we go. It looks better. So of course, make sure that your textures are aligned properly. Make sure that, you know, all of the textures, nothing got messed up, just like that. That looks good to me. Anyways, back to smooth shade, so we can have somewhat of a performance jump. And now we have to take care of some other things before we proceed. We need to create the so-called LOD4. So what is an LOD4? The LOD4, so let me give you a quick introduction into what LODs are. So in most modern video games, LODs stands for level of detail. In order to save performance, what usually happens is, let's say you have a model, right? Let's say in BSP you have a model like that. In order to save performance when they're running very high poly models, a video game implements a feature that makes it so if the player gets further away from a ship, that model will get replaced by lower and lower quality version of the model, depending on how far away you are. it depends on the percentage of the screen that the model takes up. So if you're really close, it'll be like this. It'll be very detailed. But if you get far away and it's like that, the player won't notice the difference if the model is less detailed. So the game automatically replaces it with a lower quality version of the model. And if you're really far away, so you can barely see it, then the model is very simple. Like it's very simple. It's not complicated at all. And that's done in order to save performance, so the game doesn't have to render so many polygons at once all the time. And this is no different. I'm gonna actually teach you how to implement that concept into all your models, so you at least save some performance. So what do you have to have an LOD for? So you have LOD1, LOD2, LOD3, and LOD4. LOD1 going from 1 to 4, from highest detail to the lowest detailed. So the LOD1, this is essentially your LOD1 right here. That's the most detailed one. When we export our model, the exporter is actually going to create for us the LOD2 and LOD3, but you have to create the LOD4 yourself. That's the least detailed one. In the past, I would just take LOD4s from the internet, but now I'm actually going to show you how to do them yourself. So it's not actually that hard. All you need to do right now is you're going to click on front, and you're going to copy it into LOD4 front, rear into LOD4 rear. And what I usually do is I remove all the polygons except for the big ones, like the hull and the deck house over here. So like maybe the chimneys and the deck house, like that. And I'm gonna remove everything else. So in order to remove this, I would click hide selected, then select everything, delete, and then unhide. There we go. And do the same thing for the other one. You could do both of them at the same time too. So I'm going to select back ship, hull, what's metal? No, you don't need the metal, definitely don't need the metal. So you're going to remove basically all the small detail, like the ropes, the portholes, all that stuff. So you have just your big model. Stuff 3, stuff 4, and there you go. So you're going to click hide selected, delete, unhide. And there we go. So now you basically just have the basic model over here. You can see the I can already feel the performance has improved drastically. However, this is not enough yet. We're gonna have to reduce this even more. So right now this is actually textured. So you can see this is the basic outline of the ship. So for your LOD4 and LOD4 rear and front. So what you're gonna do now, in order to reduce your model even further, here's what you're gonna do. You're gonna make sure you have this selected. Then your surface selected. Then you're gonna go into the construct tab and click on reduce polys plus. This is a tool that lets you reduce your polygons, and depending on the percentage over here. So you're gonna click preserve mesh quality, and you make sure you have all these settings on. And let's try to 0.1. So what this means, this is basically the percentage. 0.1 stands for 10%. So you're gonna be leaving 10% on the model or of the polygons there. So let's click OK. Let's see how this looks like. There we go. So you can see that it drastically reduced the quality. So if you look at this window right here, you can see how the quality changes. And this is what you want. So essentially you went from 8,000 polygons, almost 9,000, to almost 900. So again, 10%. We put 10%. 8,900 divided by 100 is 890. Or divided by 10, sorry. math skills. Anyways, let's try to do even less. Let's do 0.5. Well, yeah, there you go, 455. This is actually good. This is usually what you want, but I'm gonna try and go even further. So let's go 0.1, actually 0.2. And there we go. This actually looks really good still for an LOD. And remember, the player, when they see this model, they're gonna be so far away, it's gonna be like this. This is how far away they're gonna be. They're barely gonna be able to see it. And this is gonna save you quite a bit of performance, especially if you have a lot of these ships running at once. And there you go. So now what you're gonna do, you can remove your old LOD4. And when you use the reduce polys, it copies the new reduced into a new layer. So just click X, Control X, and then Control V to paste it in here, and do the same thing for the other one. So what I did is I did 0.1, just like that. And there we go. You can see it's very reduced, but doesn't matter because the player is gonna be so far away from the LOD4 that they usually don't even notice it. Okay, so you may notice that it's not textured. That's because all of our UV maps got removed. When you use Reduce Polys Plus, none of the UV maps are kept. Which would normally be a problem, but here it's not a problem since this LOD4 is not going to be textured properly. So here's what I usually do with the LOD4s. I actually rename them to a different surface. I would select all, click I, edit all, and I would just call them LOD4. So now I'm gonna go into my surface editor again, click LOD4, smoothing 75 degrees, and then I'm gonna go ahead and click front like I did with the wires, if you remember, and I'm just gonna choose the whole texture. Oh, sorry, not this one, whole A. There we go. So it does the front, so it looks like kind of gray, right? So in the distance, the ship is gonna look kind of gray. So hull, you can actually do specular bump. You don't need to do the actual one, specular bump. And there you go. And also, just like we did in the texturing part, remember you have to do blank.dds, blank.dds. And there you go. Just like that. So that's your LOD4. So when the player gets too far away, that's the model they're going to be seeing. So remember, they're going to be so far away that it doesn't matter if it's low detailed. And that's your LOD4. Just like that. Anyways, there's one more part that I could do here, but I'm gonna keep it till the end because actually no, let's do it right now. I was gonna do the rifts for later, but let's do the rifts right now. So what are the rifts? So just as a side note, you don't need what I'm about to do. You don't need to do this if your ship is not splitting in two. Basically, what rifts are, I'm gonna be putting damage models on the edges of the model right here where they're gonna split. So the model is gonna split like this, and there's gonna be a damage model that gets replaced right here, so it's not just blank like this, so you can't see through the ship. Anyways, so in the downloaded folder, I actually included a folder with some damage models for you to use. So let me navigate to that real quick. So it's going to be in the universal folder and then damages. So if you open this up, you can find there's some damages in here already. There should already be texture too. If it asks you for a texture, the texture should point to destroyed.dds, which is in your BSP texture folder. So go into your BSP texture folder and just look for destroy.dds. It should be one of the vanilla textures. Anyways, there's a bunch of damage to rift that you can use here. There's big ones, there's one for carriers, there's one for inside, and you're going to be using more of these when we get to the damage models, when we get to the actual creation of the damage models. But for now, you can use something very simple. So let's see, for our minikaze, of course we can use something like this. We're going to scale it all the way down. So I think this is the best one to use. And you're going to create two new layers. You're going to call this one front rift, and this one's going to be rear rift. You can call it crack, whatever you want. Rear crack, front crack. There we go. Okay, so it's getting quite a bit laggy, so let me switch to smooth shade. So front rift, yeah, so I'm not gonna copy yet. So now your job is basically to adjust your rift so it fits your ship. So you're gonna need to rotate it, scale it, stretch it. I'm gonna show you all the different commands that you can use. So again, the best thing to do is if you hold left shift on your keyboard, you can have multiple layers selected at once. So you have front rift, hold left shift, and then click this one too. So that's left shift, and then you're gonna go ahead and select your surface. The surface names should be destroyed, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, whatever it is. So destroy 1. So you're gonna select it like this. You can move it around. Remember the size command that I showed you earlier. You can size it up, size it down, and your job basically right now is to make it fit the ship. It doesn't have to be 100%. Of course, it can't be 100%, but you should be able to get pretty close with these damage models. Again, this is damage, so it doesn't need to be tidy, because again, remember, damages aren't tidy. That's something I'm gonna go into. That's something I'm gonna go into more with the. By the way, if this happens to you, this happens to me quite often. If you for some reason your view flips, what you need to do is you need to click on none over here for the perspective, and then click on UV texture, move it around a little bit. Oops. Move it around a little bit, and then click back on perspective, and it should be back up. It happens to me quite often, and it's quite frustrating. Anyways, so it's like that. So now it's just a matter of stretching it out and stretching it in. So I'm gonna familiarize you with the stretch tool over here. So basically very simple, just click and drag so you can stretch it out and stretch it in, just like that, to make it fit your model better. Again, it's not gonna be 100%. It's probably not gonna look the best, but it doesn't need to look the best. Again, this is just a custom model I'm using as an explanation. So I'm gonna actually use the knife tool over here to cut through the unnecessary parts. of the damage model. So I can cut them off. You can see that the ship kind of veers off like that, and then I'm gonna deselect just like that. Then I'm gonna use the previous trick, hide selected, select the damage, delete it, and then unhide. And there we go. Now it should look somewhat better. It's like that. There we go. And now it should look at least somewhat aligned. That again doesn't have to look 100%. It will never look 100%, but it looks better than just being like a blank space, you know. And there we go. Now it actually looks like something. Looks much better than I actually thought it would. I thought it would look pretty bad, but yeah. So it doesn't look like it just cuts off into the gray wall and nothing. Anyways, what you can do here is just select your polygons, copy them, and paste them into the rear rift. And now you're gonna adapt it to the back of the ship, just like that. Click your rear. Oops, I rotated it by accident. And then you're gonna remove it. By the way, the redo button in Lightwave is Z, not Control Y. Control Y does something else. So Control Z is undo and Control Z is redo. I'm sorry, it's just Z is redo. So Control Z is undo and just Z is redo. There we go. It doesn't look half bad. Doesn't look half bad. There we go. Of course, this part is gonna be blank, but hey, you can't have everything. If you guys want, you can make your super detailed and everything, but this is just a simple import. I'm not gonna do it here. I'm not gonna spend too much time on it. Anyways, that's the front and the rear rifts. So we're gonna make it so when your ship splits in two, what's gonna happen is these two damage models are gonna appear on each side of the ship, and it's gonna look like they're, you know, actually sinking. Anyways, for now you can close the damage all file. So click close all objects. We're gonna come back to the damage damages all object when we actually get into the damage models section. That's gonna be a big one. That's probably gonna be the most difficult section of the entire process. Oops, I closed it by accident. I thought that was the save button. My bad. Let me reopen it real quick. But yeah, anyways, so far so good. We have gotten through some of the first parts of the importation process. Now we're entering kind of the middle stage. We're entering kind of the middle stage of the importation process, and now the next part is gonna be the STC. Alrighty, and it is time to get into the very next step of the importation tutorial, which is the SDC. So what does SDC mean? SDC stands for slot damage collision. It is where we will be setting up our all of the coordinates that a ship needs in order to function in game. So all the weapon coordinates, all of the crew member coordinates, all of the hitbox. So the actual STC step is separated into two parts. We have the slot part, which is what we're going to be doing right now, and the hitbox part, where we actually make the hitbox for the ship and the colliders. We will be doing that later after the damage model section, but first we will be doing the slots section. Okay, so first things first, you're gonna need to go into the universal folder that you have received in the download from the description down below, and you will need to go into the STCs folder. So I have two different ones here. There's one for aircraft carriers and one for just any other type of ship. So the reason I did this is because there are a few different coordinates that an aircraft carrier needs in order to function compared to a ship, and I will actually go over those during the creation, during me going over the actual STC. So what you're gonna need to do is take this sample ship .lwo. It's another Lightwave object file, and you're gonna need to actually move it over to wherever you had your or wherever you put your ship object. So Samidare object, and then you're just gonna I'm just gonna name it Samidare STC, like that. And there you go. So now you're gonna go ahead and click load object in Lightwave, and you're actually gonna load it, Samidare STC. Alright, so here's what the STC looks like. So right away, there's two layers. There's slot and traffic. Traffic contains all the crew members and all the walking and standing crew members, and the slot contains everything else, or should contain everything else. It doesn't have to. You can put them both in the same layer if you want. I just like to keep it organized. Anyways, Yeah, so this is the STC. So it's just a bunch of triangle and a bunch of lines. So what these are actually 3D coordinates in a 3-dimensional space. Coordinates that the game will use to position weapons on, all of the explosions, special effects, stuff like that. And the actual coordinate for any given triangle is situated on the right angle of any triangle. Most of the time, not all the time. I will explain to you later. Okay. So what you're gonna want to do is have both of these selected and then hold left shift to select front and rear at the same time, so you can see both of them at the same time. So what you're gonna be doing right now, basically, you're just moving all of these around so they can fit your model. Anyways, now one thing that I actually have not noticed so far is that the one thing that you have to make sure before you actually even start the STC is that your model is 100% centered. As you can see right here, my model is not 100% centered because you can see that the black line that runs along the 0, 0 coordinate in the position on the bottom left is away from the ship center. So what you need to do, even before starting this, you need to make sure that your ship is 100% centered. So hold left shift, select all of this stuff, and then you can just click T on your keyboard and then just click and drag over to the left side, and make sure you don't accidentally move it up or down. One useful thing to know, look at this part over here when it tells you position as I click and move. So you can see as I click and move, it gives me the offset. So make sure that everything except for the X has a number. Everything else has to be 0. That's how you're checking if you haven't accidentally moved it up or down. So let me align this completely so it's as centered as possible. Just like that. So that's the first thing that you should be making sure of when you're doing the STC. There we go. And there you go. Now it should be centered. The guns should already be centered because we centered them separately. There you go. So save all objects. And now you're gonna select all of them at the same time so you can see them. And now you can actually commence. Now we can actually commence the STCs. Now, if you open up your surface list, you can see that there's a bunch of new surfaces. All of the surfaces with the hashtags over here, those are the STC. Those are the STC coordinates, the different STC triangles and stuff like that. So all of those pertain to an STC. So those are the ones that we're going to be moving around, and I'm going to go through each one of them one by one so you know what is what. Anyways, let's get started. So first one is bottom line. So remember during the first part of the tutorial when I told you that most of the time you're going to be in polygon selection mode, but there's going to be one special time when we're going to go in points. This is that one special time. We may have to go in points. So again, the basic controls of Lightwave: click T on your keyboard for the move tool, click and drag to move them around. So the bottom line is the line that will run alongside the bottom of your ship. It will tell the game engine to not make the ship go higher in the water line than this. That's the bottom line, as the name suggests. So click on the point selection mode, and first thing that you should do, I actually made a mistake here. You should not have the line go up like that. It should be straight all the way through. So what you need to do is click with your point selection mode, click on a point, and then click T on your keyboard to move it down. Just like that, and make it 100% straight. There we go. It needs to be 100% straight. And then you're gonna click the whole thing if you want in polygon selection mode, and you're just gonna move it up so it matches with the bottom of your ship, just like that. That looks pretty good. It doesn't need to match exactly the length. Doesn't really matter too much. And there you go. Just needs to run alongside the bottom of your ship. Alright, next up is the cameras. Alright, so what these are the camera positions to which you can switch to if you're using the dev input free camera tools, which are normally blocked. They're normally blocked in the normal game, but you can enable them using dev input hacks. I don't usually move them because I don't really care too much, but you can move them if you want to. But the point is they have to be here, otherwise the game wouldn't be able to run the model. So you can just leave them. You can just leave them there. You don't need to move them. Anyways, the deck line, just like the bottom line, is the line that will run alongside the top part of your ship, the deck. And once again, I also made a mistake here. It shouldn't go up like that. It should be 100% straight. So go into point selection mode and start moving them just like that. And then you should actually make it a little bit smaller. So go into size and then make it a little bit smaller. Click T on your keyboard to go to the move tool and then move it down a little bit like that. And if the deck goes up like this towards the front, make sure you align it with the very bottom part of your deck. Basically what this is making, this is telling the game engine, do not put the ship higher or lower in the water line than this. This is the deck line. Anyways, that's it. And let's move on. This is Explosion 01. I'm not exactly sure what this is, but I usually always put it at the magazine explosion, where the magazine explosion would be. So you're gonna decide where all the different explosion effects go. So yeah, I usually put them at the explosion, the magazine explosion, so it's gonna be at the front of the ship. Next up is the explosion in the engine room. That's the coordinate at which the white smoke will come out after you disable a ship's engine. So I usually put them at the chimneys, just like that. So the white smoke will come out of the chimney when the engine gets disabled. So explosion fuel tank. And this is not the fire that comes from the fuel tank. That's a different coordinate. This is more the initial smoke that comes out after you hit the fuel tank. I usually put them towards the back of the ship because that's where normal BSP models are. So explosion magazine. That is of course the location of the big explosion from the magazine. Very simple and straightforward. I usually always put it at the front of the ship where I want my magazine to detonate. There you go. And explosion steering. So this is a thing from BSM. BSP actually doesn't use steering, and I think the game is gonna crash without it though. So I still put it roughly at the place, even though the game doesn't use it. Anyway, so Farvis. Farvis are the coordinates. If you can see, they're the two triangles at the back of the ship. They're the positions of where the back, not sure, it's not a wake, it's when your ship is sailing forward, the water splashing from the ship will come out as you're sailing forwards. That's what those are. You want to put these at the back of your ship, because as your ship is going to be sailing forwards, you want these to be roughly above where the propellers are, because that's where they're, assuming that's where they're normally be. So you should try and make them symmetrical. You don't necessarily have to, but it would be nice if you did. Just like that. There we go. That looks pretty good. Next up is the fire. This is the actual fire of the fuel tank when it catches on fire, and I'm going to be putting it at the same place where I put the explosion for the fuel tank. There we go, like that. Next up, so the idles. The idles are the standing crew members around the ship. I'm actually going to show you right here. If you want to have more than 9 idles, I will actually show you how to copy these STCs, so you can make more if you want. I'm going to go ahead and purposefully delete all of these. So I'll be copying and creating new ones all the time. Anyway, so this is idle 1. This is of course the first one. Let's put him at the front of the ship. So this is the only real exception to the right angle rule. The right angle rule, of course, is that the coordinate is always in the right angle of the triangle. This is for some reason, this is the only exception to the rule. For some reason, the MMOD exporter for some reason turns these triangles around for the idle crew members. Not sure why, but it just does it. And for some reason, sometimes the coordinate will actually be right here to the right of the right triangle, or the right angle, sorry. Not sure why, but I suggest starting off by making your STC with the right angle in mind. So for now, but then when you actually get into the game, if you see that it's wrong, then you're gonna be able to go back and change it. So by the way, if they're at a right angle, they're gonna be facing the right angle right here. So let's see, where do we want it to face? Let's make it face up there. So let's move the triangle down here. And let's move it like that. Let's leave it like this for now. And if they're wrong, we can come back to change them later. I guess that's accurate. People may get them wrong, so I guess I may show you the proper way of doing it. Anyways, yeah. So for now, we're just gonna keep it like this. So this crew member is supposed to be facing that way. Like that, and then in order to make sure that they're flush with the deck, you're gonna bring it down just like that, and there you go. Now they should be as close as possible to the actual standing coordinates. So again, now if you want to copy a new one, all you're gonna do is click Control C on your keyboard, then Control V, and then click I, and then you're gonna click Edit All, change idle 1 to idle 2, and there you go. Now you have a brand new idle coordinate to work with. Again, let's put this one. This ship is not gonna have too many, because this is just a tutorial ship. But let's maybe give it like 5 or 6. So the bridge, I believe, is closed, so you can't even see in the bridge. So there's no point in putting them there. But I am gonna put a few in here. They're gonna be maybe the guys with the binoculars. It's like that. Boom. And there we go. So right now they're facing up, so I want them to face to the side, so it's gonna be like this, like that. Okay. Oh, whoops! So it flipped again. So I remember what you do if it flips for you for some reason. Non-UV texture and then perspective should be back up. I don't know why it keeps doing that. It's a bit of a pain in the ass. There we go. I put the last one. He's gonna be in the back like this, just staring off into the ocean. Okay, and those are the idle crew members. Next up is the Kemeny. This is a lot of these words are in Hungarian because in case you guys don't know, the developers of Battlestation Pacific are a Hungarian studio. So Kemeny stands for chimney. So that's where the chimney smoke is gonna be coming out when you're sailing forwards in your ship. And there we go. Next up is Orhulam. Orhulam are the front splashes of the ship as the ship is moving forward. So previously the Farwiz were the rear splashes, and the Orhulam are the front splashes. They have to be angled like this. If you angle them in a different way, their water is going to be splashing in a different way. So they have to be angled like this. And there we go. This looks good. Anyways, next is the paths. Okay, so this is probably the most tedious part of the SSC process is these paths. These are paths for the walking sailors. I'm gonna be putting one here for, you don't need to put these of course, but yeah, it's always a nice aesthetic to see people walking around the ships. I believe that it gives the ships quite a bit more life compared to other ships in the game. Anyways, yeah, so I don't think there's actually a lot of place to put walking sailors here. Looks like a very restricted area, not that much free space on the deck. The only real part that I could maybe put it in is over here, so that he can walk towards the back. Yeah, this is the best part to put it. So yeah, modifying these paths can get really complicated. So yeah, you're gonna need to go into the point selection mode again, so you can modify them individually. Or you can just use a stretch tool if you're kind of lazy to just move the path around until you find like a spot that's not too bad. See, the problem is with this path though, it's not straight. So first of all, you'd have to straighten it out. So yeah, go into the point selection mode and then keep clicking these points until you make the path as straight as possible. Yeah, because I made the mistake previously of, well, it's not a mistake, it's just that this is the Fletcher STC, and the Fletcher's deck would arc up like this, so that's just what I had to do. So it doesn't need to be 100% straight again. These crew members are very minute details on the ship. You won't really be able to notice if they're walking slightly higher up or slightly higher down. And there you go. This is, I think, pretty straight. Anyways, now it's actually time to actually move the path down. There we go. Okay, so you can see the path. He's going to be walking alongside the deck like this, and then he's going to go into this wall over here. let's presume that's a door or something like that. Yeah, this path is actually rather high up. I think I'm gonna have to make it go a little bit more down. Then I'm actually gonna move some of these points myself manually. Actually, let me select the whole path again and then move it even more down. There you go, not too bad. And there you go, there's gonna be a crew member walking alongside the rear of the ship. Anyways, next up is the ship center. You should put this wherever your ship breaches. Yeah, it's basically just it tells the game where the center of the ship is, just like that. So our ship breaches over here, and make sure it's centered also top left over here, like that. And there you go. Okay, so this is the most important part of the STC. It's the slots. The slots are the weapon slots. These are where the guns are going to be going on. So you don't. This has way too many slots because this was the Fletcher STC, and the Fletcher that we imported for the mod had quite a few guns. So I'm just gonna go ahead and delete all of these high numbered ones. So like the 20s, the 30s, whatever the high numbers are. There's a lot of slots here. There we go. I'm just gonna delete all of these. Delete. And the 60s, slot 60 and slot 62 are usually reserved for depth charge launchers on the ship. So I'm gonna delete those two since it's only gonna have 2. The Fletcher had, I believe, 8. Anyways, slot number 1. That's gonna be the you can assign them any number you want, but I'm gonna assign slot number 1 to the front 5-inch gun on the Samidare. So this is where you choose your actual gun positioning. So seeing the texture here would be a bit important because you'd want to see where the actual gun would go. So here's what you can do in that situation. You're gonna click on up here in the top list. You're gonna click wireframe texture, and now you can actually see the texture of the ship. Now usually with like higher quality models, I guess you would actually be able to see where the gun is, of course, where the gun handle is, but in here unfortunately you can't see it, so you're gonna have to kind of guess where the best place would be, and then later on when you actually get the model into the game, if it doesn't look good, you're gonna have to change it and then gauge it a little bit. There we go. I think this is a pretty alright place, like this. Doesn't look too off center. I'm gonna move it slightly more down. Yeah, and one downside of this though, it gets very laggy, so I'm gonna switch back to smooth shade. There we go, that looks pretty centered. There we go. Okay, so that's slot 1. Next up is slot 2. And I'm gonna give slot 2 the gun in the back. So again, I don't think there's any markers over here, so you're just gonna have to do the best you can. So again, you're gonna have to remember these enumerations because then when we get to the final few steps of the importation process, you're gonna need to manually put all these guns on the ship in the LUA files. Anyways, slot 3, I'm gonna put it to the torpedo tubes. There's, I believe, 2 torpedo tubes here. Yes, 2 torpedo tubes, and I'm gonna be putting these slots slots 3 and 4 for the torpedo tubes. And there we go. Next up, I will be doing all of the AA guns. So what I usually like to do when I do the main guns, I usually like to leave a few STC spaces. So I like for the AA guns, for example, I will go straight to slot 10, even if I haven't filled up all the slots before that. It's just something I like to do for higher organizations. So let's see. Now you should probably think about where to put your guns. Since this is just a test import, I'm not going to be putting the historical alignment of the gun, so I'm going to be putting one AA gun here and then probably one towards the back. I'm actually going to, no, actually 2 over here. 2 over here, that's good. And 1 over here too. Why not? Yep, that's it. Alright, so 4 anti-air guns. And yeah, I'm gonna also have to be copying some STC slots because I don't think I have enough over here. So slot 10, like that, and there you go. And once again, just to make sure that you know how to actually copy the slots. So if you want to make more slots, simply select the slot you want to copy, click Control C, Control V, I, and then edit all, and change the slot number like that. And by the way, it's normal if your slot is invisible. It's completely normal. You can don't worry about it. You can change the color later on if you want to. You don't need to change the color at all. And there we go. I'm probably gonna just move it a little bit more further back. There we go. Perfect. All right. That should be all the weapon slots. Oh yeah, the depth charge ones. So I usually put 60 depth charge for the depth charge slots, 60 and 61. You don't need to if you don't want to. You can do whatever you want. Alrighty, and we are actually almost done here. Hashtag wave, that's another line. This is where the front wake of the ship will generate when the ship is sailing forwards. So this line should be aligned with the bow of the ship, like this. There we go. You can, because if it starts going down, it's gonna be like that. Well, there you go. That's the wave, and then the wave stern is the wave at the back of the ship, where the wake will spawn at the back of the ship. You don't want it to be like this because it look weird. You kind of want it to be a little bit inside the ship, so like this. And I don't know why they're always off center slightly. And I'm assuming the other one was off center too. Yeah. Not sure why they're a little bit off center. Always try to make sure that all your stuff is centered. There we go. And then the final one, the Zaslo. You can add more if you want. Zaslo 1, 2, 3. Those are the flags. Zaslo means flags in Hungarian. Yeah, so those are basically all those are the flags that will show up on the ship that will be animated. Let's see, I'm gonna just have one. You can have more than one if you want. I'm gonna put it let's see, I'm gonna put it at the back of the ship. That's usually where BSP's models are put, BSP's flags. There you go, and make sure that the right angle is inside the flagpole. There you go, just like that. And that should be for the STC slots. Now, one thing that you have to watch out for is when you're copying slots, sometimes the slots will get copied to one of the other layers. So go through all of the layers and make sure that you had open, and make sure that none of the slots got copied accidentally. So yeah, so traffic, make sure, yeah, so you can see that, for example, in the traffic sections, a bunch of these slots got copied over. It's normal. I don't know why Lightwave does it, but it moves all of the copy slots somewhere else. So again, Control X, and you just move it over here. Now, if you want all of your slots to be visible, if some of them are invisible, here's what you do. Go into the surface editor and go select your STC, whatever it is. I'm just gonna select more than one. Let's see, maybe the slot one. There we go. And if the color doesn't say that, click orange, and then make sure it says double-sided. There you go. And now these two appeared over here. And there you go. And that is your STC. Again, really simple for the Samidare, but this is just a test import, so it's not really that detailed. Anyways, now we can close the STC. And this is the slot part. Alright, so this is done. It looks pretty neat. Again, the only thing here that we are probably going to come back to fix is the crew idle positions, because sometimes the MMOD exporter that we're going to use, it flips it the other way, so you have to go back and change it. Again, I have no idea why, but that's just how it is. So if they look odd in game, I'm going to show you how to come back and fix them really quickly. It won't take you a long time. And one other thing really quickly before I conclude this section is the aircraft carrier STC. So there's a few things that are different with the aircraft carriers if you're importing one. So the first thing that you're gonna see is there's two different ones. The main two ones that I'm actually gonna talk about is the runway center and the lift exit point 2. So runway center will be the center of your runway. You're going to be putting it at the exact center of your runway. It needs to be matched exactly with the runway, so zoom all the way in. Let me make a runway real quick. So let's say that, for example, this is your runway, right? Make it like that. Okay, so this is your runway. You need to put it as close as possible to the runway. You have to be 100% accurate because the planes are going to be landing on it, right? So you want to make sure that you zoom all the way in and make sure that it's as close as possible. Basically, the highest zoom level that Lightwave allows you, you need to zoom into that. So it needs to be as close as possible. And next one is the lift exit point 2. This one is the exact coordinate at which the planes will appear on the elevator, and at which they will get either risen to the ground or risen above the elevator to the flight deck so they can take off, or risen or dropped below the flight deck so they can disappear, so they get back into the carrier. So lift exit point 2, again, this is the exact, so you need to put it right above the elevator, right above the elevator. Anyways, let's move on to the next part of the ship. This is the first part of the STC. We're gonna come back to the STC when we actually do the hitbox, but it takes much faster time. And let's move over to probably the most tedious and the most difficult part of the entire importation process, which is the creation of the damage models. Alrighty, and here we are at probably the most difficult part of the whole process, and it is going to be the damage model creation. Now, this is going to be very messy, usually, especially if you have no experience in 3D modeling. It will probably take a lot of determination to go through. But if you made it so far, then there's no reason to turn around. So in the universal folder, there's open up the damages file from before, and all we're going to be doing here is basically making damaged variations of different parts of your ship. There's going to be a healthy variation and then a damaged variation. So to start off, make some space after the last weapon you have, because we're going to be putting the damage models at the bottom. So here's what you do first. Create a new layer and call it EP_Physica and then 00, like that. So that's going to be the healthy version, and then the broken version or the damaged version is going to be called RONCS_Physica_00. It has to be called exactly like that. Don't know why it didn't register. Physica 00. There we go. Oh, whoops. Oh, that's why I renamed the top layer again. Okay, there we go. So EP Physica 00 and the Ronks Physica 00. It has to be the exact same spelling as this. And yeah, so that's the EP is the healthy version, and the Ronks is the broken version or the damaged version. And I'm gonna be probably doing something like 3 maybe here, because this is a tutorial ship. So for the different ones, you're gonna be doing 02 and then 01, like that. So there we go, 01 and then 02. So it starts off at 0, then goes 1, 2, 3, 4, and so on. Oops. Yeah. By the way, if you click save incremental by any chance, that's not what you want to preferably do. So click save object as, delete the incremental. It'll give you version 001, and then resave it again. You preferably don't want to do that if you accidentally click save incremental. I don't know why Lightwave implemented that function. It's really annoying. Anyways, yeah. So all we're gonna do here is we're going to be taking parts of the ship and putting them into the damaged parts. Alright, so let's start off with maybe the front. I usually do the front, so let's damage the front. So a very useful tool is take the knife tool. You're going to be using the knife tool in here a lot. So what I do is just cut across like this. There you go, and oftentimes just go back to the texture view to make sure that none of the textures got messed up, because you don't want that happening. And there you go. Yeah, when you use the knife tool, sometimes the textures may get messed up. But here you go. Then you're going to select your front part. You're going to click Control X to cut it. And then you're going to paste it into EP Physica 001 or 00. And I'm going to take another damage over here. Let's see. Let's make the superstructure and the front chimney a single damage, like that. I'm gonna take them like that, select them, Be careful, always be careful when selecting. So make sure you select everything like that. Control X, and then EP Physica, like that. So that's the, again, that's the healthy versions. And make sure your textures are all good, so nothing gets messed up. Like that, and then rear. And there you go. And let's do one more, and we're gonna do the, let's see. We put the flag at the back one. You usually don't want to put damages. Yeah, you don't want to put damages where you have guns or flags. Crew members are fine. Game automatically detects if a crew member is close to a damage, and it'll automatically remove them when there's a damage that goes off. But guns can't be removed, and the flags usually aren't removed. So make sure you're not pinging damages where there are many guns. A little bit of guns is okay, but not many guns. What's a good? Let's actually do the back chimney. Let's actually do that. Yeah. So knife tool. Let's cut this up like that, and then draw a circle around it like that, and then Control X, and then paste it into the EP Physica 002. Yeah. So by the way, EP in Hungarian is healthy, and Ronks is unhealthy or damaged. Anyways. So that's the first one, and that's the front part. Like the front part of the ship is gonna come off, and it's gonna be like a little damage in here. So for the front, so right now all I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna do what I usually do, and I'm gonna go through all the different damages, and I'm gonna apply them the way I usually would. So I'm gonna give you like a few tips as I'm doing it. Yeah, so this is gonna get very messy, but one good thing about damages are they are naturally messy, so they don't necessarily need to be tidy. Damage is usually messy. That's just how it is. Anyways, for the front damages, I usually use this one, Damage 01, and that's a pretty good one because you can cut it up easily. You don't need to do much with it. So you want to have both of these selected at the same time. You select the destroyed surface, and then you start moving it around. So here's the part, and you're gonna rotate it like that. Okay, and then now it's just a matter of scaling it and moving it left and right, scaling it up and scaling it down so it fits as close as possible. It's not gonna fit 100%, but that's okay because we're gonna be cutting it even more. So now it's just a matter of scaling it up and down, and then you need to re-rotate it usually, just like that. And then you're gonna wanna move it down so that the top part is like this. So that the top part of the damage is usually sticks out of the top, so you can have it. So you can have it like the top part blew off. I think this is pretty good. Let's see. Let's move it a little bit more up. There we go. I think this is pretty good. Okay, and now what you're gonna do is you're gonna use the knife tool to cut the damage model up so it fits perfectly with the model. Now yeah, this is where it gets kind of messy. You can't really see it that well. That's the worst part about it. You can't really see the hole that well. You can make out the rough shape of it, but you can't really see it that well. So you're gonna have to do your best at gauging all the stuff, and if it's not working, you can always just redo it. Okay, looks pretty good. So now all you need to do is select the damage model, and then get your knife tool out, and then just start cutting it across like this. So I know you can't really see that well, see where the gray part is, but you need to look very, very closely. Try and look very, very closely, as close as possible, and try to determine where the gray parts are, like that, and try to cut as close as you can to where the gray parts are. I know it can be really, really frustrating to do this. There we go. And now, if you think you have a good reading on it, you're gonna draw a triangle around it to select it, like that. So it should look like this, and then you're gonna click hide selected, and then again you're gonna click destroyed one ship.mshd. Oh, I'm sorry, not hide selected. Okay, well, let's see. No, not hide selected. You could do this too. Hide selected. So to hide the middle part, and then you're gonna delete everything around it, and then unhide. There you go. Yeah, this is what you do. My bad. Got a little confused there. Anyways, this is roughly what you want right here. Now it's just a matter of cutting away the extra parts that you don't need. So stuff like this and stuff on the sides over here, like maybe stuff like this. It's just a matter of cutting away the parts that you don't want / need. But the main oh, whoops! I cut part of the actual model itself. Yeah, so now it's just a matter of honestly cutting away the parts that you don't like. Okay, so this is what the damage looks like now. It's been cut. Again, these are not world-class damage models. They don't have to be. I'm just teaching you some basic methods. So front, and there you go. Now you get a good reading of what the damage model actually looks like. Of course, again, not world class, and we're actually gonna be modifying this a bit more so it fits better. But this is the basic gist of it. This is the very basic gist of it. And there you go. Now when the ship gets shot to the front, this there's a chance that the damage model the top part may blow up, and this will be placed instead. And now I'm just going to rotate it slightly, just so there's no like open parts, not too many open parts, like this. And there's a big gap right here. And what you usually can do with that, you can just take a part like this and then click copy paste, Control C, Control V, and then just move it around like this. So you can maybe cover parts of the ship that would normally be uncovered up. And then just keep copying it. Just keep clicking Control C, Control V, Control C, Control V, and so you're creating more, right? Control C, Control V, move it up maybe. Yeah, this is gonna get pretty tedious. Control C, Control V again. Control C, Control V again. So something like this. You get the gist of it. You get the gist of it. Again, yeah, not world-class damage models. They don't have to be though. So you can maybe do something like this, then move it down so it looks something like this. And now we're slowly covering up more and more of the damage model. You should use like different viewpoints to make sure that your model is lined up. And yeah, this is roughly the best you will get pretty much with this very limited way of doing it. Nothing much more you can do apart from this, honestly. Of course, if you're a good modeler, you'll be able to make your own damage models. But since I'm not a professional modeler, I will not be doing that. And there you go. Now it actually looks like something. Doesn't look too bad. So you can now switch in between. So you have the front, and now you can switch in between the healthy damaged. No, healthy damaged, like that. Now you can get a rough idea of what it'll look like, and then you can switch to texture, and then you can see right here, this is what it will look like. Healthy, damaged, healthy. I wonder what these lines are. Oh yeah, by the way, one thing. So when you're copying over surfaces, what's going to happen is, as you can see right here, just like with the SDC section, the Lightwave may copy them to a different layer right here. So what you need to do here is go to the layer that they've been copied to, select them surfaces, Control X, and then just paste them into the damage model. There you go. And now you can go back to looking at it. So like that, healthy, damaged, healthy, damaged. Yeah, that's the basic gist of it. That's the front damages, and I'm gonna go ahead and do the other two damages right now. I'll also go ahead and share some nice tricks for superstructure damage. I'll show you how I usually do them. So what I usually do first of all is with superstructure, I just copy the healthy one into the broken one, and then first of all I start removing all the little details. So stuff like the lifeboats. Let me find them right here. For these wires, for these towers, you don't actually want to remove them just yet, but For the wires, you definitely want to remove them because we'll be bending stuff, and then the lifeboats, you preferably want to remove them too. I know some other another guy that I knew that used to import models also, and he would also do some damage. He would do damages where like the towers would fall on the lifeboat and then would split it in two, some crazy stuff like that. If you want to, you can do stuff like that too. That would be interesting to see, but not here. This is just a basic tutorial. Anyways, so for the superstructure damage, now the next thing to do is you actually want to make all of these into a separate new layer. So click I, select all of them, click I on your keyboard, edit all, and what I usually do is I usually make them into a completely separate layer. I usually call it like destroyed underscore hull, something like that. Destroyed underscore hull, like that. And then remember, to make sure it has a correct texture, go into the surface editor and texture it real quick. Where is it? Where is destroyed hull? And apply smoothing 75 degrees, just like that. UV, you should use UV. You can try the other projection modes, spherical, cylindrical. You can see if they look like, and use destroy.dds. That's honestly the simplest texture to use. And for the UV maps, just use spec.dds and bump.dds for the specular and bump map. Spec and bump.dds. And there you go. And that's your new surface for the hull damage models. And there you go. Now it looks damaged, and of course we're gonna start bending stuff like that. So remember, so damage models can't remove guns. So I know there's a gun right here that they put. So I'm not gonna bend this top platform too much because then the gun is gonna be floating in the air, and you don't want that. But anyways, first things first. Let's actually start off with the towers right here. So with the towers, what I usually like to do is I like to bend them in certain directions. I like removing, you know, different connecting pipes or different connecting ropes, so it looks like some of the ropes have been blown off, literally. And for example, right here, I would like remove this, and I would remove this, and I would remove this. You know, random stuff, you know, like that. So it looks like they've been like kind of damaged. You know, so it looks like kind of that, and then I will maybe go into this view and start removing random stuff like this too. You know, so it kind of looks like they've been like taken apart or something like that. Again, not detailed damage models at all. It's the best with what we have. Maybe remove this, remove that one, maybe cut this one in half, maybe bend this one slightly, and then you're gonna start bending your stuff. So once you have used the knife tool to cut the tower up into multiple parts, now you're gonna start bending it. So let's maybe make sure that this one fell off to the side, and select this one, make it for even more to the side, like that, so it's bent. And then maybe I will start bending this one in a different direction. That's interesting. Like that, maybe towards the front instead, and then I will be bending this one like this, more towards the side, and then bending this one instead over to the other side, so it's more interesting that way. What's this? Oh, that's that one previously. Okay. And yeah, so yeah, there you go. So it's like bent to one side. This is like the most basic damage model that you could do. So for the actual superstructure, what I usually like to do is I would start cutting it like this, cutting up like this, because I'm gonna be making it go up and down. Basically, I'm gonna show you what I mean by that. I would usually remove like the top few part of the sandbags for the guns and something like that. Alright, so what I would select the top part like this, and then I would slightly bank it off to one side, and then down there, what I would do is I would bank it off to the other side. So it kind of looks like it's been deformed slightly. I would also start removing like certain polygons, so it looks like the parts of it have been taken off. So like looks like they've been like broken into. You don't want to have like the top bottom part of the ship revealing, preferably. Oops, I gotta do the fixing. And there we go. Very basic stuff once again. Not world class by any means. There we go. Maybe cut this part up. And then I'm actually gonna add one more cut across here. like this, and maybe back it up to the side a little bit so it looks like it's been slightly deformed. There we go. Okay, and for the chimneys I actually do something slightly different. I would start out by also cutting it up like this, because I'm going to be moving it off to one side or the other. I'm also probably going to cut some of these up. There we go, perfect. Just like that. And then what I would actually do is for the top part of the chimney, I would cut it off, and then I would replace it with damage 06. Damage 06 is actually a really neat damage that I made. That's that you can put at the top of chimney, so it looks like it's been kind of blown off, you know. There you go. And then you would use the stretch tool to kind of stretch it up so it fits with the chimney, just like that. And then you can line it up, and then you can deselect it, and if it looks kind of off, you can move it more down. It doesn't look too bad actually. I'm move it slightly up to the front. There you go. So now the tower has fallen off. The captain's quarters have been kind of taken apart by the shells and completely discolored, and the chimney has been blown off. The top part of the chimney has been blown off, and they're slightly damaged, and it's slightly damaged over to the side. Okay, and save all objects. Remember, keep saving often. Okay, and the next part is the last part. The last damage that I will be doing is the move it back, is the second chimney. So let's make something. Yeah, I'm gonna do a similar thing over here. Actually, I'm actually not gonna damage this. There's no real need to damage this. I'm gonna bring it back. There we go. Alright, so I'm gonna copy it as I did before. I'm gonna rename the surface to destroyed_hull, and you don't need to retexture again. Remember, we already textured it, so it automatically gets the destroyed textures. And then I would do the same thing that I did before. I would maybe remove some of the damages over here, just like that. There we go. Remove some of the railings maybe, because they've been blown off, something like that. And then let's see, do I want to have the same thing as before? Nah, let's actually make it a little bit different. I'm gonna make it blow off to the side now, so as if the side of the chimney has been blown off. So let's make a blank space over here, and let's get damage 06. Again, damage 06 is a pretty handy damage that you can apply very easily to like superstructures and stuff like that. So rotate it 180 like that, stretch, and then you would of course need to adjust it, stretch a little bit, and then I'm actually going to remove this. There you go. And now it looks like the side of the chimney has been kind of blown off. This is kind of what you want. Again, doesn't look really especially good, but it's the best with the tools that we have. And there you go. And I'm actually gonna make the chimney kind of go slightly out to the side. Oh, whoops! I clicked the size tool. I need the knife tool. There we go. Y again. Like that. There we go. And now you can look at your ship completely damaged. And here's a ship with all the damage models. Again, they don't look world class. They don't look that good. Like the damage immediately stops down there. Looks kind of unrealistic, but that's just a tutorial just to give you the basic gist of what damage model creation is. So I would usually do something along the lines of this, and yeah. So now you have the healthy versions of the ship. These are the healthy versions, and you also have the damaged ones, which you're going to be using. Both of them are going to be implemented in the game. Of course, this is just 3. I usually do more, but hey, this is just for a tutorial. And that's it for the damage model section. So now I'm going to be moving to the second SDC section, the one in which we create a hitbox for our actual ship. Alrighty, so let's get into the second part of the SDC section of the tutorial, which is the creation of the ship's hitbox. This section shouldn't be too long because it's quite simple. All we're going to be doing is creating new copies of our file, of our model, and basically reducing it a little bit because the hitbox doesn't have to be detailed, and just assigning different parts of the hitbox to different parts of the ship. Anyways, what I usually do is I usually start off by putting the hitbox files in the SDC. You're not going to be putting them ultimately there. Ultimately, they're going to be put in the front and rear, but not yet. Let's keep it organized. So let's get our front and copy it into here. Let's get our rear copied into here. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're going to remove all the smaller details. Oh, and I almost forgot. You also need to take your, whatever your damage models or that we just did in the last section. So now what you're going to do is you're actually going to remove all the small and irrelevant parts of your model. So stuff like the lifeboats, the portholes, the metal like the wires, yes, those definitely need to go. The rudder, we're going to keep this. We're going to keep this too, and the ropes. So you should have like your basic stuff in here, and maybe the propellers too. Yeah, remove the propellers. You don't generally need them. There you go. There you go. So now you basically have similar to what we did with the LOD4, if you guys remember. Yeah, so now basically you just have your rough outline of your ship split into 2 parts. All you need to do right now is to keep reducing them, like we did with the hitbox, with the under the construct tab with the reduce polys plus into very low polygon numbers. So again, try doing something like 0, 1. Again, the hitboxes, they don't need to be detailed at all because the hitboxes are not going to be visible to the player. They're just for the recognition of hits and stuff like that. So it seems like 0.5 is a good one. Again, you don't want the hitboxes to be detailed at all because it'll actually make the game more unstable, because the game's going to be needing to run more calculations about the hits and everything. So it looks like 0.05 is the magic number so far. So let me go to make sure you have it selected. So reduce polish plus 0.05, and there you go. That looks pretty darn good to me. Again, doesn't need to be detailed. Okay, and you're gonna move those hitboxes. So there you go. So now you have your 2 hitbox reduced models that you're gonna be using for a hitbox. Okay. So now we're actually going to start sectioning off the different parts of the hitbox and naming them. So let's go part by part here. So first of all, let's actually separate the water line. The water line needs to be, everything underneath the water line has to be its separate hitbox. So take the knife tool. You're going to be using the knife tool a lot here, and cut the ship in 2 alongside the water line, alongside the black line over here. So cut it like this, and then select everything underneath the water line. You're gonna need to get specific here. You're gonna need to zoom in quite a bit here, because it should be really accurate. So unselect this because it's above the water line, and once you have selected your underwater parts, click I on your keyboard, click edit all, and then you're gonna type in at underwater index equals 0, and then you're gonna select just the rear part of your ship. You're gonna click I again and change that 0 to a 1, like that. There you go. And now what I usually do is to get a better view of the ship, I hide the hitboxes that I just done. There we go, so they don't get in the way. So now I can focus on the other things. Next up is the magazine. So we're gonna take the knife tool and cut out the part of the ship that's gonna be the magazine hitbox. Okay, just making sure nothing bad happened here. There you go. Okay, so let me just actually make sure, did I undo here by accident? No, I did not. Okay, so let's hide those again. Hide selected, and then go into multiply, knife tool, and then we're gonna be cutting those up. So here's one cut, and here's the other one. and this right here is gonna be the portion of the hitbox, and if you hit it, you're gonna pop the magazine. So edit all, you're gonna type it at magazine index equals 0, view height selected, like that. Next up is the engine room hitbox. I usually do it to just the front chimney, so it's not too big. And here you gotta make sure you be careful not to get the back part of the ship too, because you need to number it differently. If the engine room is split between the front and the rear, you need to do index equals 0 for the front part and index equals 1 for the rear part. So anyways, the name for the engine room one is at engine room index equals 0. Engine room, not engine, but engine room. Engine room. And then the fuel tank is going to be in the back over here. Knife tool, cut it up like that, cut it again. That's a rather small hitbox. Let's make it a bit bigger, like that. I edit all at fuel tank index equals 0. So it has to be fuel tank, not just fuel. Fuel tank. There you go. And height selected, so it gets out of the way. Okay. And right now, for now, you're going to select all the remaining parts, and you're going to call it at body index equals 0. But just how we did with the underwater section, you're going to select just the rear part, and you're going to rename that one to body index equals 1. And then you're going to select everything unhide. And there you go. So that's your hitbox right now. You can't see the different colors. We're going to do the colors later. I'm going to show you how to do that. But now, what you actually also need to do is do the damage model hitboxes. So let's start off with that right away. So make sure you have everything visible so you can cut through everything at once. So let's do the front part over here first. So and you're going to put physica index equals 0. So the number over here corresponds to whatever damage you put it as. So if you scroll over here, you can see EP physica. That's the front one over here. So it should be 0. At physica index equals 0. Okay, and the next part is the superstructure and the chimney over here. So we're gonna put both of those in. We're gonna be at physica index equals 1, because remember this is physica number 1, like that. Physica equals 1, and then for the back part, it's gonna be the back chimney. Yeah, I was looking at what that would be. There we go. We're just gonna select this. Make sure you don't accidentally grab the front of the ship. So at physica index equals 1, because again, last physica index. There we go. And now select both of these parts, and now you should have all of these surface names over here. That's a properly sectioned off hitbox. Like that. And the one last thing that we need to do is that you're actually going to copy the hitbox over to two new layers, the front and the rear, and now we actually have to create a collider. The collider has to be separate from the hitbox, and I usually remove all of the top parts, since you don't really need them for the collider, since the top parts aren't really going to be colliding with anything. There we go. And let's remove the top parts like this. You don't need to do this, I just do this because it's simpler. Anyway, so your collider, very simple, and you're gonna name it hashtag Utkozo, UTKOZO, collider in Hungarian, and then another hashtag. There you go. And now you have these four unnamed surfaces, which are your hitboxes. So let's color code this to make sure we got it right, and because it looks fancy in my opinion. So go into your surface editor, scroll down till you find these hitbox names. First of all, for the Utkozo, pick the pink color right here, and you can see the Utkozo is pink. The dev, these are the dev coded colors, by the way. This is not my decisions. When you don't need to do this again. This is just for aesthetic effect. I believe it looks cool. I like taking pictures of the hitboxes. So the body, I usually do dark blue, like this. The engine room is yellow. Damages, I usually do this slightly more light shade of pink. The fuel tank, I usually do green. The magazine, I usually do orange. The underwater parts, I usually do dark red. It's like this, and there you go. This is a properly sectioned off hitbox right here. Yeah, this is hitbox 101 right here. Again, hitboxes don't need to be detailed because they won't be shown to the player. They're just going to be there for the for the impact calculations. I guess that's what you want to call them. And the planes crashing into the plane, the shells crashing into the plane, the torpedoes hitting the ship, stuff like that. That's going to be calculated by the hitbox. For now, we're going to leave the hitbox into the SDC. But later on, and during the final few stages and the final preparations, we're actually going to be putting them in the front and the rear. Anyways, that's it for the actual modifying of the ship. For the most part, now I'm actually going to move over to the section reflecting, which talks about the guns over here. Alrighty, so welcome to the next part of the tutorial, and in this part we will actually be setting up the guns properly for the importation so that we can have the new guns with the ship. So first things first, in the previous parts of the tutorial we have actually separated the 5-inch gun and the torpedo tube, so we have already separated them into separate layers. Anyways, the first thing that we're actually going to do is we're actually going to set up the damage models. That's actually the last thing on the list over here, so we're just going to copy and paste over here, kind of very similar to what we did with the actual damage models on the actual ship. So I'm going to be naming this, I'm going to be naming the damage models main turret A and then dead. Control C, Control V. I'm going to be naming this also dead, like that. And there you go. Now, what I'm actually going to do here, very similar again to the structure damage models, I'm actually going to be creating a new surface for these. I'm just going to be calling it dead. A new surface, so we can apply the destroyed textures on it. So click on dead, apply smoothing 75 degrees. Just like we did before, and then you're actually going to want to click spherical on the projection over here. You're going to see why. It actually kind of makes it look cool. Then you're going to click destroyed, of course, the only destroyed texture we're going to use. And there we go. Yeah, it looks kind of cool. There's always like this explosion to the side of the gun, no matter what gun you pick, so I think that kind of looks cool. So there's, of course, for the spec layer bump map, you're going to choose spec and bump from the BSP textures folder. There you go. And now what we're going to do actually is we're going to start manually applying the damages to it, just like how we did with the ship damages. You want to kind of start removing stuff from it, stuff like this, removing the railings from it, all the different railing parts. And probably the most important part over here, you're going to start to bend all of these gun barrels. So deselect this one, and maybe move this one over slightly to the side and have it face up. And then for the second one, you're going to want to do something like this. Oops. Like that. And then get multiply and then click knife. Like that. Maybe have it face a different side and then go to where you cut it previously and then have it face more off to the side. And there you go. Now you have like the barrels are kind of mangled and stuff like that, gives it an illusion of damage. You can also start removing different parts of the gun too, but that's not really, I'm not going to do that here because this is just a simple import again. Yeah, so there we go, there's the damaged gun. And for the torpedo tubes, you also want to do the same thing as before. Click I and then rename it to that surface. There we go. So you have that, and you also want to start maybe taking off the railings from it. Like that. And then maybe actually remove some of these tubes completely, or just take off the tops. Nah, that doesn't look that good. Let's see. Maybe just select one of them over here. Oh, whoops. Make sure you're always in polygon selection mode, not points. Maybe do something like that, and then maybe bend it off to the side, like this. Oops, I selected stuff at the back too. There we go, off slightly to the side. You get what I mean. Very basic stuff like this. Doesn't need to be fancy. So the most important part really is getting the textures to change. Okay, and the next part of the actual gun is we're gonna need to separate the barrels up. So I'm gonna be actually naming all of these layers in advance. So the next layer, the second layer is gonna be called barrels. The third layer is gonna be called barrel A. Third layer is gonna be called barrel B. And this layer is gonna be called the hitbox. This is gonna be the hitbox of the gun. Hitbox. I'm gonna move this layer over slightly up so it's all nice and tidy. Just like that. Man turret A dead. And now we're gonna be splitting up the barrels and the barrel bags. This thing's over here, the barrel bags. Like that. And this is where it gets kind of tricky. You need to really zoom in to make sure you're not grabbing different parts of the gun. You're gonna be needing to go kind of back and forth. Kind of go back and forth like that. And again, switching between the different views, make sure you haven't selected anything else. And then if you think you have extracted the barrels, click Ctrl X, and there we go. That looks pretty accurate. And then you're gonna paste them into the barrels section, and you're actually gonna need to center your barrels now. So move them towards the center, and make sure that the end of the barrel kind of lines up with the center, the end of the actual barrel. There we go, like that. So it's centered. Okay, next part is you actually want to put the tips of the barrel, the very tips of the barrel. You're gonna want to take them out of the barrels layer, and you're gonna start putting them into barrel A or barrel B. So the leftmost barrel is gonna go into barrel A, and the rightmost barrel is gonna go into barrel B. So it goes from left to right. Right, so barrel A is the leftmost one, and you go A, B, C, D, F, G, however many barrels you have. So the reason we actually split up those individual barrels is these barrels, especially with big guns, this is very important to do, because the very big guns are going to have recoil. If the gun shoots and the barrel backs up a bit, this part of the barrel is the one that's going to recoil. Or that is the one that's going to back up a bit, if you don't know what recoil means. And yeah, so that's how that works. You should also move these two. You should also move these two back, so they, oops, not rotate them, move them back to the center, because you're going to be moving all of them back later on. There you go. That's how it should be. And finally, let's take care of the hitbox. So you can just use the base. You don't need to do the barrels here. So click total. Just the same thing that we did with the regular ship hitbox. Reduce polys, and then just do 0.05 like that. And there you go. That creates a brand new hitbox layer like that. That's reduced and they're ready to be used as a hitbox. There you go. That's pretty much perfect. Click I, and then just like with the actual ship hitbox, you're gonna name it body index equals 0. At body index equals 0. And I'm also gonna make it blue, because I like color coding my hitboxes. You don't need to color it at all, but I like doing it because it makes it easier for me to distinguish. Also, one last part that you need to do with the barrels, they're a very crucial part. If you forget this, your guns won't work. Take an SDC coordinate, an SDC triangle, and bring it over to the barrels, and you're gonna name these two fire and then 1, and then you're gonna go 1, 2, 3, 4 for however many barrels you have. So the reason we do this is, just like we did with the SDCs, we need to create kind of like a mini SDC for the gun itself, and we need to put the actual fire coordinates for the explosion effect, and out of which the shell will come out, the actual shell. We need to put that onto the gun itself. So you gotta make sure this is accurate, right? Because you want your guns to be working properly. So make sure you zoom quite far in. There you go. And then you're gonna copy and paste it into the other barrel layer, and make sure you name it fire 2. And then you're gonna go 3, 4, 5, 6 for however many other fire coordinates you have. Same thing with AA guns, like that. And there you go. And I'm also going to color code these. and double-sided. There you go, so I can see them now. So I can see the triangles. And there you go. Now this is what your gun should kind of look like. It should look like this. The barrel should be at the bottom, or well, not at the bottom, in the center, and the base should be also centered like this. And this is what the gun should look like. So for anti-aircraft guns and for very, very small caliber guns, you don't actually need to separate barrels into their own, the barrel front into their own barrel layers. You can leave them in the barrels layer over here. That's the only thing that matters, because this is the part that's going to be rotating up and down. Because very small guns don't have recoil, right? The very small anti-aircraft guns, they don't need to have recoil. Well, not visible recoil, at least in BSP. So with very small anti-aircraft guns, you actually don't need to separate this into, you know, barrel A and barrel B. Anyways, next up is the torpedo tubes. So the ones that we have on here, they actually have torpedoes already in them. Usually that's not really preferred, because in the game the torpedoes are actually gonna come out of the part in which the torpedoes were supposed to be in. So this is not really ideal, but for a test import it's okay. I guess I could maybe remove the tips of the barrel and see if they're empty. I mean, I guess you could do something like this. So just pretend that these are the actual launchers, and then what you could do is what's the surface name? Yeah, mine launcher, and then click double-sided, and there you go. If you click double-sided, then the insides are actually going to be rendered as well. So yeah, I guess you could do something like this if you want to. Yeah, let's do this. It looks better. Anyways, yeah, so for the torpedo tubes, you don't need to do barrels and all that shit. All you need to do is create a hitbox for it, right? So do the same thing as before, total plus reduce polys 0.05, like that. There you go. You can remove the wirings, of course, you don't need it. And you can also remove this, you don't need the tubes. The more polygons in the hitbox, the slower the game will be, because it needs to calculate more stuff. Anyways, I'm just gonna name this hitbox. And again, same thing with the gun. At body index equals 0, not 1. There you go. So now, there you go. So that's your hitbox. Very simple. And yeah, you also need fire coordinates here. A fire coordinate for the different torpedoes. So let's copy the ones from the gun. Oops, not in here. There we go. You can just put them in the base. The base is the one that's going to be firing. And you're going to put all your fire coordinates in here and nicely line them up with all your stuff. So try to get this as accurate as possible. And there you go. Since I've only done 2 of the fire coordinates before, I'm gonna I can see them colored, so I need to color code them. Again, you don't need to color code at all. It's just personal taste of mine, and it's easier to see and fancier. So there you go. The 4 firing coordinates for the barrels. And one other thing, if you're doing anti-aircraft guns, if you want to put people on your model, you can very easily do that in the universal folder that I sent you. So universal, there should be a people file and objects, and then you can get setting sailors for Japan and US, and then you can move these around and put them on your guns, on your entire car guns sitting around, and you can move their hands so they kind of synchronize with the gun itself. And there's American, and there should be American and Japanese ones in that folder right here. And there you go. That's how you set up the gun. So by the time you're done, you should have separate layers for all the different parts of the gun, just like that. Okay, and let's move into the final. Yeah, well, good news, we are done with the modeler part. We're almost done, practically done. There's just a few more things that we need to clean up before we move to the Lightwave layout part, which is where we're going to be setting up the model for the final import. Anyways, let's move on to the final preparation stages in the modeler. Alright, so we have approached the end of the modeler section. There is just a few more things that we need to take care of before we move on to Lightwave layout. So first of all, your hitboxes, you're gonna select your front hitbox and colliders, and you're gonna move them into the front layer like this. So both of these have to be together like that. Alongside the rear, do the same thing. So yeah, I know it looks weird, but this is the way it's gotta be, otherwise the game doesn't work. So yeah, make sure your STCs are all centered, and make sure everything is as close to centered as possible, that nothing is off center. After that, yeah, so there's one more thing that we're gonna need to do, and that reflects all your surfaces. So all of your surfaces are right here. What you need to do is, you may have already seen the ones from the damages, the one you copy over from the damages. At the end of the file name, they have a ship.mshd. What you need to do is make sure that every single texture surface of the ship that's going to be rendered as a 3D model has ship.mshd at the end, space, then ship.mshd. It has to be spelled exactly like that. So what these are basically, they are shaders. There's a bunch of different shaders in BSP, and the ones that ships use are ship.mshd. And also, in case you guys didn't notice, I actually forgot to put the luminosity and diffuse textures on the dead surface that I created for you guys. So that's very important. So basically, the gist is, make sure that on every single surface that ends with ship.mshd, you have 5 T's. So let me add them over here. So you have 5 textures over here, 5 white T's. Color, specularity, and bump, and then the diffuse and luminosity both have to be front blank.dds. And okay, so I'm gonna go through all the rest over here and make sure that they all have ship.mshd and 5 textures. Okay, and there we go. So by the time we're done with this, every single surface that's going to be rendered should have ship.mshd, and it should have 5 white T's. That's the gist of it. Remember, be careful not to mark any of the STC slots, by the way, like all of this shit. This stuff doesn't have to be, because this is not going to be rendered, the hitbox stuff. So only the stuff that's going to be rendered as a 3D model. And there's I forgot about one more thing. Sorry, there's I saved it. You see, I saved it as an incremental again. Yeah, it's really annoying. I don't know why Lightwave implemented this incremental function. So just go save as and then overwrite. There we go. Did I save it as an incremental again? Nope. Some that complete. Come on. Okay, well it still says version 0.00, whatever. Anyways, yeah, there's one more thing that we need to take care of, and that's going to be separating the propellers and the rudder. So at the rear of the ship, we're going to need to isolate the propellers and the rudders. So if you had a hitbox over here, you will need to move it out of the way by using the hide functions, but you don't need to, because these are not part of the hitbox. So what you're going to need to do is select your propellers, and we're going to be making a few layers over here, a few separate layers, and make sure you don't actually, I think I accidentally selected part of the surface for the little, I don't know what these are called, but yeah, so I'm going to be creating 2 new surfaces, propeller A, propeller B, and rudder A. We're only going to have one rudder, and then you're going to grab your actual rudder of the ship, and then you're going to Control X, and rudder A like that, and then you're going to put the leftmost propeller in propeller A, and then you're going to go from left to right, just like we did with the barrels, with the guns. Yeah, it's asking me to save it now. Come on, save it as that. There we go. Okay, so yeah, make sure you don't save it in incrementals. Really annoying feature of Lightwave. Anyways, next up is we're gonna need to basically really quickly center these actual propellers and rudders. So we're going to be pivoting them. You don't need to know what pivots are. It's really simple. All you need to do is head over to the view tab, click on pivot, and then if you click center pivot and you get this error right here, that means you need to, all that means is basically you need to restart Modeler real quick. That's all that means. I don't know why Modeler gets you that error. Sometimes it just does, but it is what it is. There we go. So you have propeller A, propeller B. There you go, like that. And then you're gonna start doing what we call pivoting. So select one of your rudders, make sure you have one selected at the same time. Click pivot under the view tab and then click center pivot. So you see this blue circle right here. All you need to do is keep clicking until you get that circle, that cross, sorry, on the very, very, very center of your rudder. So try to get as close as possible to the center of the rudder. The very center of the base of the rudder. There you go. And you're gonna do the same thing for the, I'm sorry, not rudder, the propeller. The very center of the propeller. There you go, like that. Very center of the propeller. And for the rudder, you're gonna put it at wherever the base is. So always, it's good to always click center pivot. You're gonna be doing much more pivoting in the aircraft importation tutorial, but not that much in the ship one. So I suggest putting it at the base of the part that connects to the ship. So something like this. You can try to get it as close as possible. And there you go. Just like that. And one thing with aircraft carriers, for those of you who are importing aircraft carriers, the elevator that's gonna lift the planes up and down, you also need to have this separated, very similar to how we did with the propellers. And you should also put the pivot point at the exact center of the at the exact center of the elevator. So let me get you a few tips for those who are making elevators for aircraft carriers. So let's say that this is your flight deck, right? There we go. And let's say that in the middle of your model is the actual elevator. It's something like, let me make a real quick sketch with the, where is it, multiply knife tool. So let's say that your elevator is something like this. Something like this, right? So you can, let's say that you can, just imagine this as an actual texture right now. Don't imagine as if I actually cut the model. So it's a texture, right? It's part of a texture and it's not separated from the model, right? So how do you separate it? Well, you would take the knife tool and imagine these as if they are the ends of the texture. What you would do is you would actually start cutting the part slowly like this. So it kind of creates an illusion there is a round edge. This is what you would need to do in order to get your elevators for the aircraft carrier correct. Oops. Just like that. And then you would do that for all the four corners. So when you're done with the actual cutting, all you're gonna have left is this. So let's imagine this is your elevator right here. You're gonna click pivot, center pivot, and then you're just gonna be putting it right in the middle. And that's all you need to do for the aircraft carrier elevators. Anyways, and that officially concludes it for the Lightwave modeler part. We have come a long way from our first just OBJ file, and now it's time to move into Lightwave layout, where we will be actually exporting our ship in the correct format that the game can read it in. Alright, so now that we're done with the modeler part, we are gonna be moving into Lightwave layout, which is the red one right here. There's really only one step that we have to do here. It's much shorter than all the steps that we had to do in the in Lightwave modeler. Anyways, first things first, you're going to go ahead and load your object that you created, your Lightwave object, into a Lightwave layout. So you should have this window open to the side over here. If you don't, roll the tutorial back all the way to the beginning till the Lightwave preparation stage. Anyways, load your Samidari complete, and whichever ship you chose. I'll load my Samidari complete. And first things first, you don't need the guns yet. You can select them all like this and then click clear selected and click yes to all. and then you should switch over to shaded solid. Just like in the Lightwave modeler, it gets really laggy if you have the textures. Okay, and first things first, what you're gonna want to do when you have everything loaded in like that, you want to click S on your keyboard, which is the shortcut to saving, and you want to go to your objects folder, into your import ready mine is Samidare, and then create a new folder over here where you have the objects. You're gonna call it scenes, and then you're gonna call it Samidare, well, whatever ship you chose. I'm gonna call it Samidare complete, like that. And now up here it should tell you the name. And one thing that you should do quite often, whenever you click S on your keyboard to save, you should also go file, clear scene, and then you're gonna have filed, load, recent scenes, and then you're gonna reload the one you just had. And then if it asks you to switch the path like this, you're gonna go ahead and click yes. It should ask you to switch the path. If it doesn't, that means you haven't created the folder properly. And there is a way to check your working path. Go edit and then path options, and this right here is the path that you need to switch to. Right here. If it doesn't, you should switch it to, because what's going to happen is when you export the model, it's going to export the MMOD file, the actual model file, into this path right here. So make sure this is the correct path. Anyways, now we're actually going to set the model up appropriately. So what we're going to do first is you're going to click null right here. You're going to add two null objects. First one you're going to call front null, and then the next one is going to be called back null. Just like that. And then you're going to be rearranging all these objects in the scene editor right here. All the objects that you have are visible in the scene editor right here. So you have front and rear at the top. You're going to want to drag front null underneath. So underneath the front, underneath the actual front part. This is called parenting in Lightwave layout. You're going to want to drag it over here, and then you're going to want to drag it a little bit more up, just so this line kind of goes back a further bit. So now you can see that the front null became a became a child of a complete front, and complete front is now a parent to front null. You're going to be doing a lot of parenting here. Yeah, parenting and parenting again. You're going to do the same thing with back null, but with the rear. So you can see now I can fold these up. You got to be able to fold them up like this. Okay. Yeah, so what you're going to want to do next is move over your LOD4 front underneath the complete front, but make sure you don't parent it to like front null again. Make sure it's right in between front null and the actual front object, and do the same thing with the back, just like that, in between back null and the rear. Next up, you're going to go into your front rift like this, and you're going to parent it to front null, so it has to be able to fold twice like this. Make sure it folds twice. Same thing with the back. Rear rift has to be parented to back null. Next up is the propellers and the rudders. We're gonna put these right underneath the rear part, since they're gonna be in the back, and we're gonna parent them to the rear. Propeller A and rudder A, like this, and make sure they are all parented to back null right underneath the rear rift, so you can be able to fold them up like this. So the damages, you're gonna put them in the respective half that they belong to, just like this. There you go. So you can fold them all up like this, and then the back damages like this. Make sure they are in their correct half. If they're not, there's going to be problems. And the STCs, you're going to leave them outside, just like this. So if you want to color code this, you can right click and then choose the color like this. I usually do this because it helps me visualize the different parts of the layout. So I usually do damages orange, I leave the propellers and rudders blue, rifts are green, the LODs are magenta, these are red. Okay, and then once you have done that, also make sure you save. Very important. If you save it, click yes, and then if you want, you can also clear scene and then reload, just like that. Okay, and the next part of the step, the very last part of the layout setup is you're going to be applying different comments to different items in the scene editor. So if this button over here that we added during the very first part of the tutorial, if you click on it, you can select different items and you can add comments to them. So this is how BSP knows what different parts of the ship they are. You're going to be adding different comments to different items over here. So let me grab my item comment list real quick. And right now I am basically going to be copying over the different comments and telling you where to put different comments on what items. I'm going to be pulling these straight from my comment list. I'm going to be putting the comments down in the description, either in a text file or right in the description, not sure which one yet. Anyways, here they go. So the first one is this very long comment. You should be putting this one on your front and your both your front and your rear. This long comment right here, AUL stands for auto LOD. This is the comment that's actually going to generate your auto LODs, and you're going to be putting this comment just like this. Make sure it's exactly like this. Do the same thing for the rear, and put it also in the rifts, the two rifts that you have, just like that. And you can also put it on the damage models if you want extra performance on the healthy ones. Do it only on the healthy ones. Next up, for any part of the ship that's going to be in the front, you're going to be putting front. Well, only the front actually. Don't put it on anything else but the actual front and the back. So front and back, like this. So the actual front object and the rear object should have front and back respectively. Like that. And then the LOD4s, all of the LOD4s are going to have the same comment. It's going to be this comment right here. And then all of the rifts are going to also have one comment alongside the auto LOD comment. It's going to be this. And then the propellers, depending on which one they are, it can either be, if you have two, you're going to be doing this guy right here. Casavar means screw in Hungarian. So for propeller A, you're going to do Casavar 2. And for propeller B, you're going to be doing Casavar 4. Just like that. There you go. And for rudder, you're going to be putting rudder 1. And then if you had more than one rudder, you would be putting rudder 2. So this VISP comment, this is VISP stands for visibility percentage. Basically what this means is when the percentage of screen taken up by the rudder is less than 12%, the rudder will actually disappear. It's just all to save performance. You don't need comments on anything else. You don't need comments on the damage models. Apart from that auto LOD comment on the healthy ones, the game recognizes their file name, and you don't need no comments on the STCs or on the null objects. Nothing like that. So again, make sure you clear the scene and then reload. And then one last thing that we're going to need to do before we actually export the model is, of course, a run over through our comments one more time just to make sure we got everything right. Alrighty, and before we actually export it, I just want to quickly go over what to do if you have an aircraft carrier. So all to do if you have an aircraft carrier, you're going to put your elevator object that you have right where your rifts would be, and it would all be, of course, one object like this. You would put it in, and then you would add the following comment to it. Let me just pull it up real quick. It is the elevator 2. It's this one right here. Elevator 2. You wouldn't need any of these over here. You remove them, and you would just put elevator 2, just like that, and you would save it. And that's going to be your elevator comment for your elevator aircraft. And then we are ready for the final export. I'm gonna just clear scene one more time just to make sure. And you have officially reached the Lightwave ending, the ending part of the Lightwave part. So you're gonna click on MMOD up here, and you're going to disable this, and you can leave this on if you want to. It generates double-sided polygons, as they said. So the model viewer is handy sometimes. It usually doesn't work though for big ships. So this ship, maybe it'll work, maybe it won't. I guess we'll see. But for any ship bigger than like a destroyer, it won't work at all. So I don't suggest running the model viewer. It just lets you see your model. It lets you see your STCs if you place them correctly. That's all it is. It's basically like a mini BSP inside of the game. So you can just and then after you've selected your settings right here, you're gonna go ahead and click OK, and it's gonna export it for you. And right now it's exporting everything. You don't need to worry about any of these errors up here unless you have like a lot. And there we go. And now it should automatically launch the model viewer. And as you can see, mine failed, but that's completely normal. It doesn't matter because the model viewer is very old. It's not able to run these models. It doesn't matter though. Doesn't matter. We shouldn't care. Okay, and after you're done with this, you're gonna click done in the top left window, then done here, and then you can close this one. And then you are going to go ahead and open your import ready folder that you created with the Samidare, and then there should be a new folder called export. And there it is, ta-da! This is your MMOD file right here, the file format for the BSP native format. Next up, you have finished the Lightwave part. The only thing that you're gonna do in Lightwave from now on is fix anything that's wrong and then re-export really quick if there's anything wrong at all. So what we're gonna do now is we're actually gonna go into the BSP and we're going to put your model into the actual game and actually try to get it to work. Alrighty, so in order to get your actual ship into the game, here's what you need to do. First of all, you're going to need to go into your BSP folder, your Team Wolfpack Battleship Berserker Mastered mod folder. You're going to go into scripts, data tables autoload, and then you go open the file called vehicle classes. And then you're also going to go into class tables, and then arcade and realistic, whichever one you want, and you're going to open device classes. So both of these files contain all of the classes, all of the vehicle and device classes respectively for the entire game. And we're going to be adding our Samidare into the list of classes. Anyways, so in case you guys don't know, with the Team Wolfpack mod, the last unit that's been imported so far has been the Z39. I don't believe there's been any other unit imported, so it's yeah, so that's where it stopped. So each one of these classes has a number assigned to it. As you can see, the Z39 is a vehicle class number 352. From 352 to, I believe, 384. Actually, I don't think it's 384. It's somewhere in the 380s, I believe. You have free spaces. So from 353 to the 380s, you have some free space to import some new units. You can't go higher than that. You have to make sure which is the. You have to check which is the upper limit. Again, I'm not exactly sure. Because after 380, at a certain point, the buildings start to come in. Buildings take up the spaces. So you have like maybe 20 free spaces for units if you want to add some more. So first thing that we will need to do is actually copy an entry from another Japanese destroyer with similar stats. So let's copy the Shiratsuyu would be the most similar ship in this case. So the Shiratsuyu class right here. We're just gonna copy it or let's add it to the bottom of the classes list, just like that. And I'm gonna change this to the Samidare, and let's change it to whoops, I changed the plane. Samidare, just like that. And let's change it to vehicle class number 353. Make sure it's not taken up by another class. You can check real quick by searching for the vehicle class and then the number. If it gives you that's the only match, then you're fine. So let's change the comment, and let's change the name that's gonna show up in the game, and let's just use the Shiratsuyu picture. You can add your own pictures later. Okay, for now, the only thing we're gonna change is the model. So open up the mesh category right here. This is the one that references the actual model file. So open up the folder with your actual new model, and then you're going to the BSP folder. You're gonna go into models, ships Japan, and then I'm just gonna name this Samidare, just like that, simple. Move over, just like that, and then rename this to whatever you renamed it to, so it references the correct ship. So for the platforms, what you're actually gonna do is you're actually gonna remove everything except for one for now, because we're gonna be setting up these guns independently later on. I'm going to show you how to set up the guns, of course. It's quite a bit of work, especially if you have a big ship with a lot of guns. Anyway, so that's the Samidare. Just to make testing easier, I'm going to make it an unlock. So go to another ship that's an unlock, so like the Conqueror, for example, and copy this line over here, unlocks equal true. And copy it and paste it, under unit lib view distance. It has to be in alphabetical order. So underneath unit lib view distance. And then open up a file called unitlib.lua. That one is located in script data tables, then unitlib.lua. Here you're going to add your ship to the unit library so that you can actually take a look at it before you actually play it into the game. That's very important. You always should look at your ships in the unit library first. I'm going to add it underneath the DDs, underneath the Hayate, and let's call it Samidare. Samidare, just like that. And we don't have a proper description yet, so I'm just gonna call it placeholder. Let's use the high-tip picture, sure, why not? And in the vehicle classes, copy the number and then paste it in here. Make sure it's the same number. There you go. And then one last thing, make sure that the traffic is empty for now. The traffic is empty, and you can also empty out the idles, although if you don't, it won't be too much of a deal. You can also just, I know we have 6 idles. Are the idle crew members, the ones that are standing around, by the way. So I know we have 6, so I'm just gonna leave these 6 as they are right now. You can change what they are. So for example, this one is the idle sailor. This is the officer that uses the binoculars. You can change all of that yourself if you want through here. Anyways, let's launch the game and let's see what our mod looks like. Oh yeah, before that, important thing, you need to copy over the textures, the high resolution textures. So all of the textures in the textures high res folder, copy them and paste them into the models and then textures. There you go. And now let's load up our BSP. If you have the debug log, which would be useful here, if you're modding, you can put it off to the side so you can see the game loading all the model real time. And there you go. I just quickly lowered the music. Let me actually, I want to hear the effects. I want to hear the effects of the ship. There we go. And first things first, let's go into your tactical library, unit identifications, and let's scroll over to our new ship. It's past the destroyers. There it is, Samidare. Click 3D view, and let's see what it looks like. If it's a big model, it'll probably take quite a long time to load. And there it is. Of course, the guns are not here. The torpedo tubes are not here yet. But apart from that, the model looks pretty darn good, in my opinion. It looks better than I thought it would. It's not the best model, but it's pretty alright, I guess. Anyways, let's try to take it out for a spin in one of the skirmish maps. So click skirmish. Well, that's the best place you could actually test these units out. Go into the duels and click destroyer, and then select the Samidare, and then load up the duels, and let's see what it looks like in an actual game. And there we go. Here's the Samidare, and let's load it in. And here's the ship. It looks pretty cool. It's a nice little ship. The model, once again, is it's alright. And the first things first, right off the bat, you can see that the MMOD exporter actually did flip all the crew members. So that's one thing that we're gonna go fix right away. So you can see that the crew members are right now actually standing in thin air, as you can see. And these two are. This one does not face properly. These two are literally sitting on top of nothing, and so is this one. And this one over here, you can see standing on the water. But apart from that, you can see that the gun at the front is in the same place that we put our slot in. And you can see our hitbox is getting hit. We're getting hit. You can see the explosion coordinates are happening in the places where we put them in, and things like that. Let me actually lower the music, lower the volumes a little bit more. And there you go. Yeah. So the only things that we're really going to fix here is the crew coordinates, but that's about it. Let's see if we can get the splitting to work if they kill me. Oh, there you go. Well, okay. Doesn't matter. Okay, so we're gonna go really quickly through the modeler part. We're gonna fix the things that are wrong, especially with the crew members. I'm gonna show you how to fix that, and we're gonna go through the actual model and then put up all the guns and make sure our boat is working good. Alrighty, so here we are back inside of Lightwave modeler. So we can go ahead and fix the STC coordinates that are off for the crew members. So let's get into traffic, and let's go ahead and fix these people coordinates. So what's very useful to do, you should actually hide your hitbox. So select your hitbox coordinates and your collider. The polygons are not the coordinates. Just like that. There we go. You're gonna click on view and then hide selected. There we go. So now they don't get in the way. And also select your damages. There we go. So now we have the full ship visible. Anyways, let's start fixing our things. So what's very useful to do is actually go into the game to see what's actually happening. So for example, for the top one, the one on the front, he's facing down and a little bit off to the left. So let's see, where's the coordinate? There it is. Okay, so which means exactly how I thought it would. So sometimes the modeler flips it, so the character is actually over here, to the right angle of the right angle. So which means that you're gonna need to move him accordingly. So what I usually do is I move the right angle to where the angle to the right of the right angle. I move it to where the right angle was, and then I put my cursor over at the proper angle now, and I click R twice. R rotates it. That's what I usually do. And there you go. Now I'm just gonna go do that for the rest of the coordinates right here. So move the angle to the right of the right angle to wherever the right angle was. I know that's a mouthful. And then put your cursor at the angle at which the person is at and click R twice. That's a nice and easy, quick way to do it. So cursor at the angle to the right of the right angle, move it over, and then click R twice. Same thing over here. Cursor at the angle to the right angle, move it, click R twice. Same thing for this guy. Over here, R twice. And finally, for this guy over here, move it over, R twice. There we go. That's how you fix them. Now they should be positioned properly, and they should be looking in their correct directions. Anyways, what's next is, oh yeah, we need to import the guns. Anyways, let's move over to Lightwave layout. We're gonna actually, is there anything else I should fix over here? Let's see. I think all the other coordinates are good, honestly. Yeah, looks like the model itself is fine. We just need to get the guns working. That's fine. So since we changed the coordinates over here, we're gonna need to really quickly re-export this. So just reload the scene, save it if it asks you to make sure that the updated coordinates are loaded. There we go, and just click MMOD, and you don't need to run the model viewer, and then just let it re-export really quick. Simple ready Samidare. There we go, and let's put our actual model file, the new model file. Let's replace it. Samidare. There you go. And here you are in the game. Let's load it in, and there you go. You can see that one is correct. Let's see. All of these ones are correct too. And these ones stand correctly too, and there you go. And that's how you fix the crew members. Yeah, I don't know why Lightwave or the exporter does that. It's just a weird quirk that it has. I don't know why. But yeah, that's how you fix it. And now let's go into, oh, by the way, another thing that I noticed, I missed this. The propellers are spinning in the incorrect direction. So the right one, I don't know if you can see it, is spinning correctly. Oh, well, we have the depth charge. Oh no, yeah, never mind. Yeah, the right one is spinning correctly, but the left one isn't. So a really easy way to fix that is all you need to do is just select your propeller. So the left one is spinning here correctly. So for the left one, we gave it Savar 1 or Savar 2. You're gonna change it to Savar 1, and I guess you could change propeller B to Savar 2, just like that. And I'm gonna re-export one more time just to make sure we got everything right. Yeah, so it's just a matter of making sure that you got everything right the first time. No, nobody gets that. It's fine. It's normal to make mistakes. Okay, and while I'm here, I'm actually not going to reload just yet. I'm going to set up the guns properly. So load Lightwave layout, clear scene, and object, Samidare. And now you're actually going to go ahead and isolate the guns. So let's clear this. You're going to clear everything apart from the 5-inch gun for now. Alright, so that's your gun. And now there's a little bit of fidgety work that has to go on here. You're going to hide. It's very useful to hide objects. You can hide by clicking over here and then click hidden. That's how you hide different objects. They're still there, but just hidden. You're gonna parent the barrels to the base, and you're gonna parent the barrel fronts to the barrels. You're gonna do it like that. And you click save to make sure you save your scene. I'm just gonna call it Samudari main turret A. Just like that. Okay, and there are also some specific comments that you're gonna need to have for the guns. So let me grab those real quick for you. There we go. Okay, so you don't need to color code them. I will though, because I like color coding stuff. So barrels, Hitbox, and then the dead. There you go. I'm gonna save and clear scene and then re-enter it. And then you're gonna go into comments. You're going to select the base like that. Base is gonna be for the comments for the base are base and then damage. I'm sorry, not base. Damage 1. For the barrels, it's gonna be just barrel. For the barrel A, it's gonna be barrel front 1 and barrel front 2. The hitbox is not gonna have any comments, and the dead is just gonna be damage 2. And then this comment right here. There you go. Okay, and you're gonna click save, and now we have to do some fidgety work. We have to basically move the barrels to the point where they would normally be on the gun. So the movement controls and layout are the same ones as in Lightwave Modeler up here. All you're gonna have to do, click this blue button. It's gonna follow the object as you move it around. So the way you move objects in here, you actually have these arrows right here. What I do is I go from perspective. I click on either left or right. That's gonna make it much more precise movement. You should do that too. So move it up a little bit, move it like that, and to get even more precise, you can either do front. So like that. Again, this can be very fidgety since I don't exactly know where these guns go. And then you can do top. Like that. Front. And then I'll do my best to align them to the best of my ability. There we go. And once you have finished moving these, make sure to click enter on your keyboard and then click OK. Either click enter twice or click enter and then OK. Make sure you do that, because otherwise you don't need to know what basically that does. It's called keyframing, and it's gonna come into play during the plane importation tutorial. All you need to know is every time you move something in Lightwave layout like this, click enter and then click OK again. And then you're gonna do the same thing for all the barrels. Click enter and then click OK, or just double enter. And there you go. And now you can switch back to the perspective view. Oh, and I forgot, I actually need to move the actual barrels too. I moved those as well. And there you go. So just make sure that you move those as well to the appropriate amount. I think this is the correct one. Like that. There we go. So let's go top. There we go. Just where the black kind of starts, the darkened areas. And there we go. That looks pretty good to me. Make sure you click enter and then click OK. And there we go. And that's your properly set up gun. And now I'm gonna go clear scene and then reload, and then now you can export it MMOD, and the model viewer will actually work here. So if you click OK and then run the model viewer, and here's the gun in the model viewer. So how to use the model viewer: you can click C to view your hitbox, and you can click U to view the different STC slots. We only have one here, so, and then click escape to get out of it. Click done and then close this. And let's really quickly load our torpedo tube here. The torpedo tube is going to be really simple. You don't need to move anything at all. Just apply the comments. Just like that. Clear. Clear. Let's hide everything so it looks nice and tidy. And there's the torpedo tube. I'm going to save it as Samudari torpedo tube A. Just like that. Clear scene. And then I'm going to reload it. You don't need to parent anything here, of course, since there's no barrels or anything like that. I'm going to set the colors because I like being fancy. And the comments, of course. The base is going to get base and then damage 1. The hitbox is not going to get any comments. And the dead is going to get damage 2. And this comment right here. There you go. And you're going to click save. And I'm going to clear scene. There you go, and now you can export it. It's that easy. So I'm going to run the model viewer again, just to be sure. And there's the torpedo tube. Click C to view the hitbox, and then click U to view all the STC slots. And there you go. And now they should be added to your exportation folder. And there you go. There's the main turret A and the torpedo tube. Now, what you would normally have to do when you import a new gun, you would actually have to make a new device class entry, and that's exactly what I'm actually going to do here. Yeah, so let's go do that. So I'm gonna bring these models over though first. So Japan, I'm gonna call this Samidare main turret A, and I'm gonna call this Samidare torpedo tube A. Move this over to the devices folder, models, devices, Japan, just like that. All the textures should have already been moved, so we don't need to worry about that. Now what you need to do here is go over to device classes. Just like ships, all of the different weapons have their own class numbers too. Essentially what you need to do is, just like with the actual ship, you need to create copies, a brand new class for the guns. So let's take the Fubuki gun, for example, since it's simple. And let's go over to the bottom of the list under new guns for ships. And let's call this the Samidare main turret A. Copy over the name. Copy over the name. And then copy over the file name. Main turret A. Just like that. Oh, whoops, I forgot to remove the quotation marks and a comma. Make sure you have the quotation marks and a comma, otherwise the LUA won't read it. And now this is going to be a new class, and of course you need to change the number, and we can make sure there's no taken number. So 414, sorry, looks like a free number, so 414. And I'm actually going to copy the torpedo tube too. So torpedo, let's see if we can find something. Torpedo launcher US. This is the US ones. This is the PT one. There we go. The 2 times, the 3 times, and I need that quadruple. There we go. That 4 times 1. And let's copy it over. And let's call this one, let's go 415. Let's make sure 415 is not taken. Good. We're going to call this Samidare torpedo tube A. There we go, just like that. Okay, and you are also going to be copying over the file name, the MMOD file name, just like that. And that should be that for device classes. Now we have 2 brand new guns, 414 and 415. Now you're gonna go ahead and actually put these guns on the Samidare. So the first one, we're going to be going 414. So make sure that this entry right here, gun 1 equals the number. This number references the device class. There you go, 414. Now we should use that gun. So I'm not going to go too much into depth on how this works. Basically, all you need to know is the rest angles are the angles at which the gun rests when it's idle, when it doesn't have anything to shoot at. And these windows are here are the firing angles. You have the maximum horizontal angle, the minimum horizontal angle, the vertical and the vertical angles, maximum and minimum. All of these values are in radians. If you want to do degrees, you're going to need to do your conversions online. And for the rest angle, the first value is the X, the horizontal, and the second value is the Y, or the vertical angle. That's all you need to know. So in order to save time, I'm going to be copying the gun angle values from other ships, because I'm trying to keep this tutorial at least somewhat as short as possible. It's already like over 3 hours, I believe, of recording. So I'm going to go ahead and take guns from other ships that have already been imported. So for example, the Asashio's main bat gun, I'm going to be copying that one like that. It's useful if you like do these little commenting things, the 2 dashes and then main turret A or B, so you know what's what. Or if other people want to mod your stuff, so they know what's what. So main turret A, You can also change the name over here. And there you go. And I'm going to be also be copying the torpedo tubes. And also I forgot to change the gun value for the turret B. Make sure you always go back and change it. So what's the device class of our new torpedo tube? It's 415. There you go, like that. 415. Now we have our torpedo launcher set up, and make sure that the numbers are referenced correctly. So torpedo B. So it's 3 and 4. You basically here you're referencing the STC slots. Here you're gonna be putting your guns on the STC slots. What I'm also gonna do is I'm also gonna put the walking sailor. So you gotta remember this STC was taken from the Fletchers. So what you're gonna have to do is go over and find the Fletcher, and actually copy the Fletcher's traffic entry. It has only one, since it only had one. So traffic is of course the walking sailors. Scroll all the way down, go over to the traffic, and copy it over. And right now it's the American sailor, so you need to go to another Japanese ship or German if they have them. They usually don't. And to copy over the walking sailor entries. There we go. Let's give it a Japanese officer. JP officer walk and the JP officer ship traffic. Like that. There you go. That should be that. And now you should have the torpedo tubes and the back gun over here as well. So in order to reload the device classes and vehicle classes files, you do need to quit the mission. You can't just restart the mission, you need to quit the mission and then reopen it. That's how you reload the vehicle classes files. Destroyer, Samidare. And there it is. There's your gun, and there's the walking sailor, and there's the torpedo tubes. I believe they're actually facing the wrong way. I think it's supposed to be facing forwards, although I'm not sure. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's supposed to be facing forwards. And this tube as well. Yeah, but you get the gist. You can change the angles yourself. And here's the guns, and there you go. They also recoil too. Pretty cool. These are so clunky guns. They look so funny when you shoot them. But yeah, there you go. Now the model looks a bit more full. You have the guns, you have that, and yeah, so the AA guns will follow the same exact concept. So I'm gonna go ahead and do the guns and the depth charges. So all if your best bet is honestly just copying from other ships. If you want to do customized angles, you can do that too. So I'm gonna go ahead and put all the other guns on it. Alrighty, and I copied over the most of the gun slots right here, and as you can see, I am marking all of my guns, so I know which one, what is what. That is very good practice, especially if you plan to share your model with the modding community, so that people know what's what, so they don't have to guess what your STC slots were, or so you don't have to actually send them your STC, so they have to look at it manually in their own modeler. But yeah, I assigned on the A guns and the 2 depth charges. Also, if you at any time forget what's what, you can also just open up modeler again and look at your slots over here. Just select it, click I, you can see what it is. This is slot 3, and that's it. This should be the last time we are looking at the ship. Let's reload it real quick so that we can actually take a look at the ship. And there it is, Samidare. And there we go. We have our A gun on the back, our our two AA guns on the side, and our AA gun on the front, which is facing the right for some reason. Not sure why, but you get the point. You can change all of these gun angles to your convenience. And you can see they shoot at the enemy like that. And now if you go to the depth chart, just look underwater, you can see now that the propellers are spinning correctly. So your propellers, the right propeller should be spinning outwards. Both the propellers should basically be spinning outwards at the top. That's how you know that they are spinning correctly. And the rudder also spins, you can see. So the only thing that's really to fix for the ship, it should be a little bit lower in the waterline. So let me show you really quickly how to fix if your ships are lower in the waterline. So all you need to change right here is this line, waterline ratio underneath hull. The lower this number is, the higher the ship is in the waterline. So let me just make sure. So I make it a let's make this a 4.42, and reload the vehicle classes. So the lower that number is, the lower that your ship is in the waterline. The lower your ship is in the water, I should say, perhaps. And there we go. Here's the Samidare. And there we go. You can see now it's slightly more down in the water. You probably don't even notice it, but some people will. And there it is. Now you can shoot the guns, and everything is working pretty fine, I'd say. The torpedoes are also spinning around. They're turning around. You can fire torpedoes from them, as you can see. You can see, there we go. It fires properly, and the ship has hitboxes. So that's pretty much it. What I'm probably going to show you next is some little extras that I found during the course of my importation, my little importation career. And after that, we're gonna close the tutorial. And there is one more cool thing that I found out during my modding career that some people may find useful, may find cool. I implemented this feature on different ships that I imported. So if you want a certain part of your ship to flutter with the wind, so the Samidare isn't really a good example. There's nothing really here that would be kind of a soft surface. So the best thing that I could show you over here is these ropes over here. So let's say that you want your ropes over here, or a better example would perhaps be something like maybe like a tarp. If you have tarp on your plane, or I'm sorry, your ship, or if you have like a custom flag that you want to have, this is something that you could find useful. So you're gonna have to clear a new surface. So select it, click I on your keyboard, and then make a new surface, and you can call it anything. The only important part is the ending, the shader name. So let's name these ropes, and then the last ending name, just like with how ship.mshd you had to do it. Try doing foliage.mshd, and you're gonna see what happens in the game. Foliage.mshd. This is a shader used with trees, and of course you need to apply a texture to it now. So go into the surface editor, because it's a new surface. It doesn't have a texture yet. So foliage.mshd, you don't need to do 5 textures. All you need to do is just one. So front, let's make it black like this. And not sure. Oh yeah, it's texture. There you go. So it's black like this, and make sure it says foliage.mshd, and then it says front, only one texture. Don't apply any more textures more than this, just the color one. Foliage.mshd is a shader used with trees, and with the trees, of course. And what it makes it the surface do, it actually makes it flutter with the wind. So let's get into the game and let me show you what it looks like. Alrighty, here we are in the game, and let's load up the Samidare, and you will see that the ropes kind of flutter. You can see, yeah, it looks better here because it's not really a surface that's made for stuff like this, but basically the faster you go, the more it's gonna flutter. So this basically creates like a kind of a fluttering effect. So if you're going really fast, it's gonna flutter even more, and if you stop in your tracks, it's gonna flutter very slowly. So this is useful for like custom flags if you want to do something like that. So you can see it's kind of fluttering. It doesn't look correct, of course, because this is not the correct model to do it with. I just used it as an example. So if you have like a tarp on your ship, as I said, or something that's fluttering, you can use this nice little trick to give more realism, should I say. Alrighty, so this brings us to the end of the ship importation tutorial. If this is your first time importing, or even your first time modeling, I'm sure it's going to be very, very difficult to follow at first, but I suggest rewatching it a few times, and it will probably start being easier to you. It all depends on how dedicated you are. If you're very dedicated to import a model, then you're probably going to do it. And that's just how these things go. Anyways, I'm happy that the knowledge is out. It's been, these secrets have been kept in the community until I learned them, and that's why I'm making this tutorial, so I can teach other people how to do it. And I hope people actually make something cool out of this, just like the Team Wolfpack mod. And I hope that new innovations keep happening. Unfortunately, this game's engine is pretty weak, so it can't handle heavy models that much, and that's its main drawback. But it is what it is. I just hope people found this useful, and if you have any questions, feel free to comment down below. And without further ado, I'm going to be signing off for this tutorial, and I'll see you in whichever video is next.